she moved down there, came down. She has a home. She has a home. She just rents it out. She works in it. So then she comes in. This door is a lot of kids.
I don't know. I was praying for my son. I'm like, Lord, let the righteousness reign on this land.
But she's like me. She's way too.
No, but I'm just saying that I was praying for her son.
Did he give you shout?
Yeah. So there helped me a little bit. He's happy.
So I'm worried about him all the time. Such a good
So do you have any idea what No, they just carved and they pulled. And this is
Good evening. If everyone else would take their seats at this time, we're going to start the meeting.
But I'm sorry. What can you do?
I know.
You can sit here.
I will.
You're stand down.
I'd like to call the planning commission meeting for Genoa Township on October 19th, 2023 to order. The first item of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. If you can join me.
And to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is to approve tonight's agenda. Do I have a motion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Hearing none, that's the agenda unanimously. Next item is the declaration of conflict of interest. Does anyone on the commission have a conflict of interest in hearing this applicant this evening? Seeing none, I'll close that portion of the evening's meeting, and I will go to the first call to the public. This call to the public is for items that are not on the agenda this evening. So if there is anyone who would like to step forward to talk about something that is not on the agenda, this is the time. And just so everybody knows, there's a microphone and a podium down here. What we'll probably do is people, as you're being called up, we'll put you in queue. We'll have someone talking and someone waiting to go next, so that we can get through it quickly. You won't have to stand around and that type of thing. So, all right. Hearing none, I'm going to close the call to the public, and I'm going to the open public hearing number 1. Consideration of rezoning application, amendment to the Latson PUD agreement, environmental impact assessment, and conceptual PUD plan for proposed rezoning and conceptual plan approved to expand the existing planned unit development, CA PUD, and interchange commercial planned unit development, IC PUD, for approximately 138 acres of undeveloped land. The request involves parcels 4711, 09, 300-046, which is located southeast intersection of Latson Road and Beck Road. The remaining parcels are located north of Crooked Lake Road and west of Latson Road, consisting of the following parcel identification numbers: 471117, 200-006, 200-002, 4717, 400-015, 471117, 400-013, 471117, 414. The request is petitioned by Todd Wyatt. You have the floor.
Thank you, good evening. We are back here in front of you and happy to be back. Without any ado, I'm choosing my team and have Brad Strader start this off. Also Eric Lord, Alan Green, and Julie's here as well.
Can everyone hear that?
Brad Strader from C2G, can you hear me now? I'm just going to go through the PowerPoint sort of briefly with the focus on changes we've made since the last meeting and changes that came out of the public hearing and direction from the Planning Commission. And Eric is going to talk a little bit about the utilities and infrastructure, and Julie's going to finish up on the traffic impact study and some of the questions that the Planning Commission had. Next slide.
All right, I'll ask again. Can everybody in the back hear? If you can't hear, raise your hand, please. Okay, but you just turn it up a little bit more. And get your closer to the microphone.
All right, how's that? You guys want to just click on to the next one? I'll just say the next one comes up.
I was just thinking we have that spotlight and it flipped and turns the page. You want to just use that?
Sure.
And for members of the commission, you might have to turn around. So streaming out behind us, so first the
Todd Wyatt kind of introduced us also. Again, I'm Brad Strader from C2G. So the purpose of our presentation tonight is to reaffirm some of the minor changes to the approved PUD that we've asked for, to review a little briefly the infrastructure investment, because there were some comments made at the public hearing that we haven't done anything to sort of implement the approved PUD, but there's been a lot of investment on utility expansion, so we believe that we've been continuously working on implementing the PUD. I'm going to overview the PUD expansion, in particular responses to the questions that the Planning Commission had, and to the review letters that we just received, and then we're going to finish off with Julie Kroll, kind of going through the traffic impact study, some of the questions that the Planning Commission had, the synchro analysis, and a new exhibit of the proposed improvements, and also kind of recap some of the discussions we had between the township and the road commission and ourselves. So changes since the public hearing, there were questions, or maybe the information wasn't all presented in an easy way to understand, so we provided more information on buffers and setbacks and so forth. So we have a new exhibit that shows all the different buffers and the Latson Road improvements, and we've increased the right-of-way along Latson Road and added 15 feet of additional space for Latson Road if there's a boulevard in the future. So we worked with the Road Commission and Township on those changes. We clarified the uses allowed in the commercial and mixed-use area per direction from the Planning Commission and your staff and consultants. We wanted to again emphasize that we set up the water system to potentially be expanded down to the PUD, but our sanitary sewer is designed to be limited to not extend west of Crooked Lake Road. We've set limits, as you'll see a graphic here, on the industrial uses at the request of the Planning Commission. We added to prohibited uses, so at the last public hearing, asphalt plants were requested to be listed in the prohibited uses, so that was been done. We reaffirmed that battery plants are not allowed within the PUD, and we've added to the list of other prohibited uses per the Planning Commission and staff. I mentioned we met with the Road Commission on improvements, and there were a few minor changes on the land uses. I think 4 were recommended by the consulting planner report, and we've agreed to all those changes as well. Just a quick recap, I think the township has put a lot of this information on its website and was discussed a lot at the first public hearing, but some of the people in the audience maybe weren't at the first public hearing. But this is the township master plan, which supported the PUD that was approved and also calls our new expansion area as part of the transition use. And Brian Borden's report notes that we meet the zoning ordinance criteria for the PUD, and that the PUD request is consistent with the I-96 Latson Road Subarea Plan, goals and objectives, Township Master Plan, and the zoning ordinance. So some of the key things on the master plan talks about having more diverse housing types. So we've added senior housing and different housing types, including some single family, multiple family, and senior housing. And we've either met or exceeded many of the other recommendations in the master plan in terms of design and open space, landscaping, and buffers. And then why a PUD? This is really kind of a holdover, maybe updated a little bit from the last meeting, but more for the audience. The PUD gives the township the ability to have a controlled development pattern on a large piece of property for mixture of uses, allows coordination of infrastructure and road improvements instead of piecemeal development. And generally, we are either meeting or exceeding the township standards in the zoning ordinance. So the PUD not only includes design guidelines that are over and above what the township would ordinarily require, but also a PUD agreement that is an agreement between the developer and any future developers and the township that specifies exactly what will happen. So it's more detailed than what a zoning ordinance would otherwise allow. This is just evidence that Mr. Wyatt had at the previous meeting, but that he's been promoting development on this property and being careful to find the right users for the property. There have been others that have been interested in this property in the past, but we're trying to find, especially the first user, to be something that would set the tone for the development, and Todd will talk about that after the public hearing. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Eric Lord from Atwell. He's going to give a brief overview of the utilities.
Good evening, Eric Lord with Atwell, civil engineer on the project here. So regarding utilities, prior to 2023, there was no public water or sewer south of the interchange. So interchange was put in, all the utilities are on the north side of I-96. Prior to 2023, there was a lot of studies that went into this corridor, this area south of Latson Road regarding utilities, capacity at the treatment plant to accept utilities further south of the interchange. So those studies were completed and really those studies separated out these different areas that are designated on this slide. Area B being sort of that purplish area north of the railroad tracks, which had a certain capacity, a certain number of RUs, which is basically measurement of water usage based on a single family home equivalency. So it allotted usage and capacities to each one of those three areas. And then in 2022, Todd went forward with installing infrastructure in accordance with those studies south of I-96, so basically tunneled under I-96 to the east where the Coles building is, brought water across and under I-96 along Beck Road and to Latson Road, and then south underneath the railroad track. So he installed all of that in 2022, and then on the west side, kind of the northwest corner of our property, both water and sewer was directionally drilled under I-96. So now water and sewer exists both at the northwest end of the property, and water exists at the east end of the property. So in total, about a mile of water main has been installed already as part of utility infrastructure to bring water and sewer to the project area. And then from this point on, the utilities exist for development to begin to occur on the property. And the way that would look is those connection points that I just described would eventually be tapped into as the development proceeds on the property. And from a sewer perspective, ultimately there will be one public pump station that is installed as part of the development close to where the Marion Genoa drain is, because that's kind of a low area of the site. So a public pump station would be installed there, and then it would pump up to that connection on the northwest corner of the property that I mentioned that eventually goes under I-96. So again, utilities exist, and there's a plan moving forward to service water and sewer for this development as it proceeds through the site planning process. And with that, I'll turn it back to Brad.
So this graphic just shows, and maybe we didn't clarify this as well in the first public hearing, but the approved PUD, which is in the light blue, so a lot of the infrastructure and so forth that Eric mentioned as part of the implementation of phase 1, which was already approved, and the pink area there is the proposed expansion. So a couple of things that changed. What's shown is the mixed-use area on the east side of Latson Road was a commercial area that's been moved as part of the new expansion to the north side of the railroad tracks, so between Beck Road and the railroad tracks. We've got graphics that I'll cover in a minute that shows the concept for that area. So the uses in the mixed-use area have changed, and they're a little bit less intense than were the approved PUD. And then south of the blue area is the area that would be expanded with industrial, high-tech, different types of residential. One of the changes in the approved PUD was the sign template. So on the left is what was approved before, and the slight changes on the right are being requested as part of the PUD amendment for the approved PUD. And so it's just a different version, a little bit taller sign because of the type of uses we expect to have happen there. But we think it's very similar to what was previously approved. But we've also added a landscaping plan that shows the landscaping that would be around the sign, which we didn't provide as part of the original PUD. And this is an example of the commercial area that's north of the railroad tracks between Beck Road and the railroad tracks. So all access would be off Beck Road. There would be no direct access onto Latson Road. There was an approved gas station in what is now called the mixed-use area that would be shifted to this area. So there's only one gas station, and it's shown here. And one of the changes that we made based on the Planning Commission direction and staff direction, before we had sort of auto-centric retail as one of the options. We eliminated that, and now it's just retail, and the list of the uses that are shown here for this area. This was one of the uses that was added, and we've added language, or we agreed to add language per the planner's report, that this would be a climate-controlled, indoor-only housing. So in the past it said mini storage, no mini warehouse or so forth, but I don't think it was clear, so we've made that more clear, and we'll reference specifically the township standards for design, so we would meet the township standards for this type of use. The mixed-use area, we've done the same thing. This is the new sketches, so we took out sort of the possibility of a like auto service area, so now it's just retail or the other types of uses that are here. The planner report said no outdoor storage, so we've clarified that the only outdoor storage would be incidental to the principal use, and only if it was approved by the township as shown in the site plan. So I think we now mimic the township standards for outdoor storage. We'll be adding to the use that any adult daycare or child daycare would be also consistent with the township standards. So this is the proposed expansion. Again, I mentioned we moved the commercial to the north of the railroad tracks. We modified the uses and what was the commercial area to a mixed-use area, generally less intense than what the approved PUD. And then we added uses in that reddish area to the south. So overall, the PUD would be about 321 acres. The PUD has a couple of concepts to show what could happen. And if you look at this, you'll see kind of in the middle of the expanded area is a black line, and this is something that the Planning Commission asked for, was the maximum extent of the industrial or high-tech industrial and office to the south. So we've added that line, and what this diagram shows is on the left is the maximum extension of this high-tech office area, or potentially some of that could be multiple family residential, and we've got different types of densities and uses of multiple family, including senior housing. And then at the southern end would be 70-foot wide single-family homes. And along Crooked Lake Road, we've got two options. One is keeping it as an open, buffered area, so you only see trees from Crooked Lake Road, or there could be large lot, 1 to 2 acre, single-family houses that front on Crooked Lake Road. This is examples out of the design guidelines. So we've got a pretty extensive design guidelines with narrative and photos of what the expectations are. And this is out of the senior housing to show the different types of senior housing that we believe is consistent with the township master plan. For single family housing, the planner report last time asked for a little bit more detail on all the dimensions and so forth. So we provided that as well. There's also language in the PUD agreement, and if we need to modify that, we will do that to meet your requirements also. One of the things that came up from the Planning Commission was the open space and the proposed expansion. So we've added more illustrations and graphics and an open space plan. So this map in the middle shows the open space network. So we will meet or exceed the requirements the township has for 25-foot setbacks around the regulated wetlands. We've got open space corridors, we've got open space along the edges, open space along Latson Road, but we'll also have interior open space within the residential area, but also within all the other areas. So we've got, I think, ample open space that exceeds the township requirements. More specifically, the Planning Commission and some members of the public wanted to know exactly what was happening on the buffers and so forth. So this is a new diagram or page in the design guidelines. So the map on the left shows the actual dimensions of the different buffers and what's being included in there. So you'll see sort of the green area is where there's buffers, and they match up with some of these buffer zones out of the zoning ordinance for the types of landscaping that would go into those buffer zones. We also have buffer zones along all the property edges, including where the development on the west side of Latson Road kind of goes in and out of different types of development. So we believe we've now buffered the single family residential that is not within the PUD. And then along Latson Road, we've got new diagrams that also show the right-of-way that's being provided to the road commission, and plus this extra 15 feet for additional right-of-way if there's a boulevard constructed, and then what the landscaping would be along there. The one caveat that we've requested in the PUD agreement is that extra 15 feet if we have to donate that for a boulevard, because we're all in favor of a boulevard, right? I think the road commission is more resistant to a boulevard than a 5-lane roadway. So the two options the road commission had were, or three options: keep it 3 lanes, make it 5 lanes, or make it a boulevard. And the 5-lane road is our least preferred. So if we need additional right-of-way to have a boulevard or greenbelt, we would provide that as long as the setbacks would be measured from the 60-foot right-of-way from center line. So that's kind of an overview, I think, of the key things or all the things we've changed for the Planning Commission comments at the last meeting. And I know there are a lot of comments on the traffic impact studies. So I'm going to turn it over to Julie Kroll from Fleece and Vanderbrink to kind of walk through, probably better than I did, the traffic impact study and her results, and also summarize the discussion we had with the road commission.
Thanks, Brad. Julie Kroll with Fleece and Vandenbrink. Our team did the traffic study for this. So I want to just kind of start with this traffic study is a little bit different than a lot of the traffic studies we've done in the past in the township. This is a large PUD, and this traffic study is not for site plan, but it is for the PUD application. So when we're looking at this, it's much larger. It's more of a planning level analysis than we would do for a typical site plan that's coming in for review. So when we do a PUD traffic study, we're looking at the maximum potential uses. So when we're looking at the trip generation for the site, this was potential uses, not actual uses that are coming in for site plan. We use this information to identify overall site impacts that would be included in the PUD agreement, and develop potential mitigation measures that may be required for a future potential development. So as far as the process that we follow for doing traffic impact studies, we follow the same process that we normally do with a few notable differences. So We look at existing traffic volumes to establish a baseline, so evaluating existing 2023 traffic. We evaluated a build-out year of 2043, so we're looking at 20 years into the future. So to look at 20 years into the future, we have to apply growth rate over 20 years to get a background, what would happen in this area if this wasn't developed, to get a 20-year projection. Then we generate site traffic. To generate the site traffic, we have to make some assumptions for this site. And so for this, we took the highest uses for this site that might be developed to get basically a worst case scenario for this area to develop recommendations. And then we take the background traffic for 2043 that we calculated, added the site generated traffic to it to calculate a future 2043 evaluation of this area without any improvements. So a lot of what you see in the traffic study is what's the future going to be if nothing happens. And then from there we can identify what mitigation measures. So that's kind of how we go through the traffic study and come up with the recommendations. There was one comment, I believe, from last time with Planning Commission about where we had evaluated where I noted misleading results, and I just wanted to clarify that question for the commission. That was in our analysis for the future conditions without improvements, and I'll go through, and I had brought some models for you guys to look at today, and showing when we do our traffic models, we evaluate queuing at the intersections, and in the models we identified in the future conditions, a lot of that queuing was extending through other intersections, and the reporting in the appendices was not going to accurately result the answers that we showed in the traffic study. So what you see as described in the traffic study is more accurate than what we put in the reports in the back, just because of how the modeling works. So that was what that was attempting to explain. Probably could have done a better job. So let me kind of just walk through some of the things that we did identify as mitigation measures. So as the traffic study did evaluate all the intersections along the corridor. When we were scoping the study, we worked with both the township and the county to come up with the scope of work for this. We also did include a school PM peak evaluation to see what was the peak hour with the school traffic, because it is, as you know, different when school lets out. The school time in the morning coincides with the AM peak, so that really wasn't an issue there. But we did pick up school traffic in the afternoon. Overall, most of the intersections operated pretty well, there was a few exceptions. Let's see if this works. Okay, so the results of the analysis, so after we did all the things that I just described, putting all the traffic together, this is results of the mitigation measure. So we identified that Grand River and Latson will continue to need to be monitored by the county and MDOT to optimize those signal timings. That's pretty normal. Most agencies review signal timings and optimize and readjust the timings every 5 to 7 years. So that's an annual thing that is ongoing. We also identified adding some additional signal timing optimization and left turn phasing at the 96 ramps. We are recommending with the proposed development that with all that heavy commercial that's coming proposed for the back road area, that they'll likely need a traffic signal at that location, in addition to a traffic signal at their northernmost driveway at what we're calling Drive 1. Drives 2 and 3, we did not identify any mitigation measures for those locations outside of turn lanes. And then at Crooked Lake, we looked at that intersection. It did not meet the criteria for signal at that location at this time. So we're recommending to continue to monitor that location to determine if and when a signal would be recommended at that intersection. This is just kind of a summary of where we're seeing the site-generated traffic. You can see large increase at Beck Road, and that's really because there's very little traffic on Beck Road right now. So by adding in the majority of traffic at Beck would be site-generated traffic. And so you can see as the traffic kind of dissipates through the network where we're seeing the highest percentage increase of traffic through the network. So based on the results of the analysis, these are the recommended potential improvements based on the analysis that we performed. Again, with the understanding that we're looking at a 20-year projection and future maximum development of the area. So as each of these come in for site plan, those are further evaluated to determine what of these mitigations may be necessary at that time. Excuse me. So as part of this, it was widening Latson Road to 3 to 5 lanes, certainly providing left turn lane. The width of the road would be determined based on the traffic that would be generated by each site plan that would come in. Updating the ramp signals to add that left turn phasing, the left turn arrows. Sorry, sometimes I do traffic speak. Left turn arrows, where you have the flashing yellow arrows. Future traffic signal at Latson and back, that would be determined based on what the development plan is for that corner. Sweet Road realignment, if that's possible to do, that would be ideal. Traffic signal at Latson and Crooked Lake Road, that would be at the discretion of the road commission if it meets signal warrant criteria and they approved it. And then update access drives to along Latson as they come in, getting those approved by the road commission. So this is the models. Are you able to click on those links? So what you're seeing is, this is a video at 8 times speed of the traffic on Latson Road at a future build-out scenario. This is in the morning. So you can kind of see, this is what I was referring to. This is what we call our sim traffic simulation. And this was really what we use to determine vehicle queuing. This is just kind of a pan through of the morning traffic, like I said, at 8 times speed.
I'm sorry, can you identify on this YouTube video? Is that 96?
Those are the railroad tracks right up on the edge. So we're going from south to north, so we're just panning up.
So are you just showing this so that the board can see, or are we supposed to be able to see what the traffic looks like? 'Cause we're going to be the ones that are actually driving. We're the ones that are going to be living with the stuff rolling through our front yard.
Right.
See the stuff?
It doesn't make any, you can't barely see what you're trying to say. It's a bunch of little white blips popping around there.
Yeah.
It's useless.
You can identify, as you're looking at this photo, what's the aerial overlay that we're looking at?
So that what we're looking at right now, that's the westbound off-ramp at Latson Road.
Is this assuming no impact south of Crooked Lake, down where Latson hits Chilson, and into Brighton Road intersection? I'm just curious, you guys are only showing just to the corner of Crooked.
Right, because the traffic's gonna increase all the way down.
You can start that YouTube video again, and when it starts up, to just identify it as we're looking at this. what
That's
we're
half of the
looking at
story.
location-wise.
Where's the other half?
So right there, this is the Crooked Lake intersection, so we started on the south end. This is with a signal at this location.
What about where it hits Chilson Road? You're not showing where it hits Chilson Road. That whole area is gonna be impacted.
So this is the first site driveway location.
You said it.
This is a Sweet Road.
The pointer.
Do you have the pointer?
which one? The right there in the back?
Is there a pointer?
That's
You
Sweet
got a
Road.
pointer up there? There we
That is, that's the site drive, signalized just south of the railroad tracks. This one right here is Sweet Road.
So when you looked at the traffic study, and you looked at the start of school and the end of school, did you also look at all the other activities, sports activities and so forth that were?
So this intersection right here, this is
Morning
the Sweet
traffic
Road
for
intersection.
people going to work.
I'm sorry, the back road, my apologies. This is back road, and that's the off ramp.
You sure?
Excuse me, stop this for a second. This isn't an interactive meeting at this point. The floor is given to the person that's doing the road study. If we have questions, we'll be able to ask them later on. I would agree that this is very difficult to see, so if we can't do better than this, we may need to move on.
Yeah, I'm thinking for the video, it's really just to show the tools that were used, and if there's specific questions later, we can bring it back up. And apologize with the size of the room, you can't see everything really well, but we wanted, because the planning commission asked to see how the modeling was done. A couple other things to point out. So we met with the road commission and the township, and they agreed with that the traffic effect study was properly prepared. The road commission.
I'm going to stop you there. I don't disagree with anything you're saying, but the problem is we're getting a lot of gaps in this, and we need to be concise with what's going on so that the folks can actually understand what you've come up with, rather than things moving around and not knowing where we're at on the overhead. Hopefully that pointer helps out a little bit for you, so you can highlight things, but why don't we move on from here and see what we have?
Sure, and we can do that. I think the list of recommendations that were pulled up earlier was what we came out of with the road commission and the township. The one other thing the road commission brought up is the possibility at Crooked Lake and Latson. So what Julie's report shows is only 6% of the site traffic goes through Crooked Lake and down to Chilson Road and so forth, so it's a minimal impact. But the road commission said they are looking at a roundabout or other options for the intersection, and that intersection is outside. We're really not impacting the intersection, but they know that there's issues at that intersection, and they're looking at other alternatives outside of our process.
That's right. So really, we just put together these models, so you can see how we do our modeling. I'm gonna turn it over to Todd.
We'll pause here and let you go on, and we'll be available to wrap up after the public comments and answer any questions that may come up.
Is that it for your team, Todd? Okay, thank you. At this point, we're going to move over to Brian, planning.
All right, can everybody hear me at this level? Yes. Awesome, thanks guys. Thanks, Mr. Chair. Brian Borden, Township Planning Consultant. So Mr. Chair and Commissioners, there are 4 items before you tonight for your consideration. Procedurally, each of these items is up for recommendation to the Township Board, who has final review and approval authority. So the 4 items were identified at the start of the meeting. They are identified on the agenda, but specifically we're dealing with the PUD rezoning, the PUD agreement, the environmental impact assessment, and the conceptual PUD plan. So those are the 4 items up for the Commission's consideration tonight. And again, as a reminder, these are all up for recommendation to the Township Board. So I will start with the PUD qualifying conditions. So I have reviewed the request and the submittal materials in accordance with section 10.02 of the Township Zoning Ordinance. I did find that those standards are generally met. One condition or caveat to that is related to any technical comments that have been put forth to the Commission by the Township Engineer and/or Utilities Director. So we'll want to make sure that that's taken into consideration with respect to section 10.02. We have also looked at the PUD rezoning. That is based on the standards in section 22.04. So the first thing that we've looked at is consistency, compatibility with the master plan. The proposed zoning designations before you tonight of interchange campus and interchange commercial are consistent with the I-96 Latson Road sub-area plan contained in the township master plan. Second point related to infrastructure and services. I've already said this once, I think I'm going to say it again one more time. That is that the commission needs to consider any technical comments put forth by the township engineer or utilities director, or in this case, if there were any comments from Brighton Fire Authority as well. In terms of the necessity for the rezoning and the ability to develop the site under current zoning, so in order to implement the vision of the master plan and the I-96 Latson Road sub-area plan, the rezoning would be needed. Otherwise, the land would remain as CE zoning, and that would not be consistent with the vision of the plan. As it relates to the compatibility of land uses, I did have a handful of comments related to the use tables that are included with the revised submittal. Those do still need some further refinement as of my last review. I know what was presented to the commission tonight by the petitioner and the development team. I think they've started to address some of those, but we'll want to make sure that we see revised versions of all of that for internal review to make sure that all of our comments have been addressed. Then my next point, Mr. Chair and Commissioners, related to the conceptual PUD plan and the design guidebook. This has been reviewed in accordance with section 10.03.06 of the Township Zoning Ordinance. So as it relates to the incorporation of the residential land uses, there are a few dimensional deviations that are noted in the design guidebook. Those also need to be incorporated into the PUD agreement. And again, that may have occurred in the time since my letter was issued. However, based on the materials that we reviewed, that had yet to be done. So we'll want to see that get incorporated. We've also incorporated a comment here that relates to expansion into the future transition area. This is under the guidance of the ordinance section 10.03.06I. We still would like the agreement to better address those standards as it relates to the expansion into the future transition area. We also put forth some comments on the PUD agreement that relates to the threshold of progress for development in the north section or in the original PUD. That would be the trigger or the mechanism to then allow potentially development to continue from the north to the south. We do think that that needs some further refinement as well. There were also some exhibits that were missing from the draft PUD agreement. Those will obviously all need to be provided as we move forward. And then I believe there were also some outstanding comments from township staff and the township attorney. We'll want to make sure, again, all of those get addressed and incorporated into a revised PUD agreement. I mentioned, I've said it twice, I'll say it again. Petitioner has to address any comments put forth that are related to infrastructure, utilities, etc., from the township engineer, the Brighton Area Fire Authority, and/or the utilities director. And then, as noted in the petitioner's presentation, they are proposing some changes to the gateway development highway sign. Because that was already approved as it was, those modifications will also be subject to further review and approval of commission and ultimately township board if you are going to accept those changes or not. And then, Mr. Chair, my closing comment is there were also some remaining staff comments on the design guidebook and the conceptual plan. Again, I think some of this has been incorporated into the presentation tonight in the time since the review letters were issued. However, we still will want to see revised documents to make sure that these items have been addressed, at least to our, and more importantly, your satisfaction. And that's all I have, Mr. Chair.
All right, thank you, Brian. And you have all those things that Brian was just talking about, so you have your... Okay. All right, great. I appreciate that. I believe Shelby's down there. Our engineering.
Yeah, hi, I'm Shelby Byrne, the You guys hear me? Shelby Byrne, the Township Engineering Consultant. So just to start, overall, this is a conceptual site plan, so all of my comments are kind of on this conceptual plan. Everything in the future, any future developments, would be re-reviewed to make sure they match the township's engineering standards. And some of my comments have already been discussed by the petitioner, especially the traffic stuff. So basically what the petitioner already said is they've already extended some sewer and water services across the road. This is consistent with what we've seen, and those sewer and water extensions were sized for this full development area to be developed. And then we also wanted to note that the water main concept should include, there's an exhibit in the impact assessment that shows the water and sewer layout. It was updated to have a little more detail, which was great. We just want to make sure that there's a combined capacity with a 16-inch water main going all the way down to Crooked Lake Road for the future, just so that Genoa Township would have the option to connect that if needed. Another note on that concept of the water main sewer, there's a side driveway, I think it's the southernmost side driveway off Latson Road. We would like to see water and sewer being extended to Latson Road, again for the same reason, so that the water and sewer services are accessible to the right-of-way into the township. And then something the impact assessment already notes is that this whole site will be developed with a full stormwater management plan. That's not just for an individual development within the PUD, it would have to be for the full development. And so they'll work with the Livingston County Drain Commission throughout that whole process, the petitioner and the township. So that's pretty important. Generally for the road layout on site, the roadways and intersections with Latson Road seem well thought out. There's a lot of looping and good circulation throughout the site. They did complete a detailed traffic impact study. But in the future, as this develops, and the petitioner already noted, when new developments come in, they will redo the traffic impact study once they know the exact traffic volumes they'll have, and we would review that as part of those site plan approvals. There's another note is that the Livingston County Road Commission has already been talking to them, but throughout this process, they will need to approve anything that's done, and we should keep them involved. And then I have one more. No, that's all I got.
All right, thank you, Shelby. I have the Brighton Fire Area Authority letter in front of me dated October 12th, 2023. And at this point, their comments were to say that it's a generic overlook on the PUD concept, and that they would get in more specific as additional comments and specificity is made with the projects. So they're aware of it as well. At this point, I'd like to ask the commission if we've got any questions or discussion points they would like to. All right, hearing none. Yeah. All right,
I'm going to read the letters that we received today, the author of the letters that we received today. All the letters I'm going to, so that their names are recorded in the record, and I will just read the individual's name. All of these are against the...
We can't hear you.
All of these letters are written in opposition to the project. First one is from Andrew Kimball. Beg your pardon?
Who are you?
Sure, my name is Greg Rassel. I'm a member of the Planning Commission. I served 6 years as as the chair of the Zoning Board of Appeals. I've lived in Genoa Township for 20 years, did 4 years on the Brighton School Board, so some people may remember me from that. And I'm a retired public works director from the city of Royal.
Isn't it proper for the clerk to read those into the record?
I beg your pardon?
Isn't it proper procedure for the clerk to read those into the record?
There is no clerk. We're a commission. We're not the board of trustees.
Okay, first one was Andrew Kimball. The second one is Maureen Jones. Glenn and Diane Hoskins. Denise Thornton. James Thornton. Adam Brozo, Heidi Burnham, Peyton Clark Jr., Mary Clark, Jay Garcia, Donna Goodwin, Lynn Hewitt, Michael Kupfer, Darcy and Chris Lucer, Kyle McDonald, Patricia Orkerson, Corey Orkerson, Michelle Razor, Susan Rickard, Robert Rout, Chris Spenceley, and Wendy Sitt. I also want to acknowledge that we've received a copy. I assume she intends to read this tonight during the public comment. We received a copy of the comments from Denise Porcello. So I'm sure she probably, from looking at it, it looks like she intends to read this tonight during public comment. So that'll be recorded to the clerk as well.
All right, I think you bring up a very good point. Who's up here? I don't know if the microphones work all the way across, but I'd like to start down on the end. We've already talked to Brian and Shelby, and we've got Glennis next to that. Glennis, if you'd like to take up your microphone and tell them a little bit about yourself.
Hello, my name is Glennis McBain. I've been a resident of Genoa Township for 23 years, a business owner within the township for 21 years, and I've been on the Planning Commission for almost 3, I believe, at this point. Thank you.
My name is Tim Chenard. I'm a lifelong Howell resident, 21 years at Genoa Township. I'm the current president of the Home Builders Association and a year and a half, 2 years on this planning commission.
My name is Eric Rauch, and I've been a part of Genoa Township since 2009. I've been on the planning commission since 2013, and I've worked continuously in Genoa Township since 2002. My wife also works in Genoa Township. Our kids go to school in Genoa Township, and proud to be a part of this community.
My name is Mary Ann McCurry. My family and I have lived in Genoa Township since 2002. I am a licensed real estate agent. I've been a full-time agent since 1934. I work with people every day to buy and sell and help build communities. I'm a proud member of the Genoa Township Zoning Board of Appeals. I've been on that board for 12 years. I've also been on the board for the Planning Commission for 6 years, as well as being on the Board of Review for 7 years. My family, including my children, are all independent business owners, and we love and appreciate our community.
My name is Chris Grayjack. I've lived in the community for 37 years. I raised my 3 daughters here along with my wife Valerie. They all went to Howell Public Schools and have excelled in everything they've done because of our school district and the people that manage it. I've been on the Planning Commission for somewhere in the neighborhood of 15 years. I was on the Zoning Board of Appeal as well for probably 2 or 3 years. My background is real estate since I could walk. I grew up in a household that had a real estate broker as my father. So I've been at this for a long time, and I understand title work, I understand valuation, I understand devaluation, and I understand real estate in general quite well. I've got about 45 years into it, and I'm thinking I'm getting the hang of it. So.
I'm Diana Lowe. I own property in Genoa Township since 1993. I am currently on the Board of Trustees and have served on Planning Commission off and on since 2010.
I am Joe Seward. I am the township attorney, been the township attorney for over 5 years, and I've had the pleasure of representing municipal entities since 1986.
Good evening, my name is Kelly Van Ryder, and I'm honored to be your township manager.
My name is Amy Ruthig, and I'm the planning director for Genoa Township.
My name is Patty Thomas, and I've been the recording secretary for the Genoa Township for about 23 years now.
All right, I think we've got everybody. The next thing that I'm going to do, you're very well acquainted with, we're going to have a call to the public. This call to the public, given the number of residents that will wish to speak, we got to have a few ground rules so that we can make our way through this because it's a big area. If you wish to speak, please fill out a public comment card, which most of you have done. Clearly print your name and address so that the recording secretary can properly acknowledge your participation in the meetings, or minutes of the meeting. Those who request to speak will be called up by name. We'll have a system so that we'll call one up, and we'll probably call two behind it that can sit, and they'll be up next so that we don't have people walking back and forth all the time. Each speaker that is for the call to the public will have 2 minutes to address the commission, and usage of this time cannot be given to others, so you can't pass it along to your neighbor. It's 2 minutes for each individual. Please be as concise as possible. Ensure that all your concerns are heard. There will be a timer and audible noise that will trip that timer when your time is up. Please be courteous to those that are speaking as they have the floor at that time, and back and forth dialogue between the audience and speakers is not appreciated, and it will become unsettling. This extends to all present at the meeting without exception. Please remember that the group that you see before you, the neighbors that you just found out where we're all from and what we're about, we've been appointed and have accepted jobs to hear situations and cases like you've provided here this evening, and they provide a process for us to apply to those and provide our applicants judicial clarity. All right, at this time I'd like to open up the call to the public, and we'll take our first three.
So, can I understand you want me to name the first and then?
I think we could go, whatever works best.
Okay, we'll try the first and then the next and see how that goes. So the first card I have is for Alan Rankin of, I believe it's 3075 Clover Bend Court. After Alan, it will be Eric Herbert. Thank you for that, 3875 Clover Bend. There is a podium and a microphone right up front here.
Why is that? Why is he filming everyone? Himself. He's adjusting the camera. Is that his camera?
He's allowed to, it's a public meeting.
Oh, okay. Just like we are.
After this one.
Please understand there may be a better way to do things, but this is the first time for us here too, so let's work with it a little bit and go right ahead.
My name's Alan Rankin. I live at 3875 Clover Bend Court. As you know, I've spoken with you before, Kelly. I live on Clover Bend, and I'm in the middle of all of the blue that you saw on the screen, and I would really like to show the topology view up there. But when I moved out here, I would like to say that Genoa Township, the reason why I moved out here is because Genoa Township was known as the Preserve, okay? The Preserve is where all of this planning is going on and all of this big industry is going on, okay? And I feel like I've been locked into it. The last meeting I was at, I was told that they're going to put a berm around my house, 3 sides of my house. Okay, why don't you just put me in prison? That's the way I feel about it, okay? I'm very disappointed in the situation, and really, I'm really upset because I don't believe that Mr. Wyatt stands behind his word. Okay, I've spoken to him a couple of times on the phone about some road conditions. You know, I've plowed, I've graded Clover Bend Court for 19 years, plus 19 plus years, because I've been there since 2004. And I'm just very, you know, I guess I'm kind of, it makes my blood boil to think that they're going to put a berm around 3 sides of my house. And the other thing is, when they put the Latson Road interchange in, I asked them before, I said, please don't bottleneck our road. And they did. They bottlenecked our road, so it's very hard to turn into our road as it is now. Okay? So there's a lot of things that are going through my head right now, but one of them is the fact that Genoa Township was known as the preserve. That was your pride. That, and you folks, some of you have been there since it was the preserve. Some of you are fairly new, but Genoa Township was the preserve, and I would like to keep it that way.
The next speaker is Eric Herbert from 4857 New Haven Drive. Following Eric will be Mally Wilson of 3400 Beatty Road.
So I guess the first question that I have is, who's dealing with the camera work here? Is this the commissioners or is it the developer?
That camera does not belong to the township.
No? Okay, thank you. So first off, I've moved down here from Heartland to Howell to be in a green space, community that's peaceful, quiet. I'm against this rezoning of the area. I live between Door Road and Latson Road off of Crooked Lake Road. I like the green space that I'm living in. I don't want industry here. If I wanted to live in an area with high industry, I would have moved to Wixom. I would have moved to Novi. I don't want to see this area become the next Novi, become the next Wixom. I want to keep that commercial and heavy industry out of here. I've got concerns for Latson and Crooked Lake Road, the traffic and safety. Crooked Lake Road was just recently repaved. The traffic that moves up and down Crooked Lake Road goes at an awfully high rate of speed. And my concern would be there'd be additional traffic flow cutting through from the southern end, people coming into work from Ann Arbor area, what have you. So another concern of mine. How many residents, what I'd like to ask is in this room, how many residents are for this proposal?
Zero. Oh, wait, there's 2, 3.
So basically nobody. And I think the consistency here with that statement should show this board an awful lot. I think that speaks volumes right there. I'm one person out of many. I think I saw 2 hands raised. So I'm just asking you, please keep Genoa Township a green space, nature. That's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
So next is Mally Wilson, 3400 Beatty Road, followed by Bill Reber, 3154 Still River Drive.
Can you hear me? So I'm starting with a statement that we are not being allowed to read as a full coalition. So up here, we have a prepared statement that will take a lot longer than 2 minutes. I won't be able to get through all of it. So if you want to help read through this statement all in one, or at least in chunks, please fill out a comment card and pick up where we've left off each time. I will first be putting on the record our several objections to this meeting. First, the notice for this public meeting is defective and that it does not list the 10 parcels of real estate north of the proposed rezoned parcels that are also the subject of this public hearing. The stated intent of this public hearing, in part, to amend the PUD agreement and conceptual PUD plan that governs those 10 parcels as well, and the public hearing notice is insufficient and that it does not inform the residents of Genoa Township of the full purpose of this meeting or of all the parcels that are subject of this meeting.
Second, the PUD agreement and conceptual PUD plan that are subject of this public hearing and which are proposed for amendment are expired. The fact that the term in the PUD agreement is longer than 2 years is irrelevant. The PUD agreement and conceptual plan are two of several components of a PUD application that to the very plain language of the zoning ordinance section 10.4.2 expire in 2 years unless a final PUD site plan is filed or an extension is requested and granted by the township board prior to the 2-year period. Neither of those happened as confirmed by FOIA request in July. There is no provision in the zoning ordinance authorizing the magical reanimation of an expired application. An expired application cannot be amended, ratified, or reinstated. It is simply expired. The Latson PUD application for the northern original 173 acres expired on August 17th of 2022, 14 months ago. Therefore, we object to any consideration by this body of any amendment to or ratification of the expired PUD application as invalid and outside the scope of this Planning Commission's authority under the zoning ordinance. We do not object in any way to the discussion related to the rezoning of the southern. Thank you.
Next is Bill Reber. I apologize for anyone's name that I get wrong, but Bill Reber, 3154 Still River Drive. After that will be Veronica Godwin, 2482 South Latson.
Good evening. This is the third meeting that I've attended and offered my public comments on this particular proposed rezoning. And in those 3 meetings and in my 6-minute speaking, what I haven't heard anybody explain as a resident of Genoa Township here to me is the specific reason why this is needed and how specifically this benefits the current residents, taxpayers of Genoa Township. That has not been made clear to me. What I heard here tonight, and I understand this is models and maps and proposals and everything, someone correct me if I'm wrong, but what I have heard is heavy commercial traffic, quote. What I have heard is that traffic queuing will extend into intersections, quote. What I'm reading into it is massive infrastructure tear-ups, costly utility and drainage services, and quite honestly, a lot of wait and see for the next 20 years. And we'll adjust the plan as it goes along. I also heard at the beginning, and the young lady, thank you for your comments about the traffic studies. She started off with saying currently the studies and everything say that most level of service will be at level D or above. I don't know, I'm not in this business, but I did look up what level D traffic, and I'm gonna read this. This is Wikipedia, you take it for what it says. D, approaching unstable, there we go. Approaching unstable flow, speed slightly decrease as traffic volume slightly increases. Freedom to maneuver within the traffic stream is much more limited and driver comfort levels are decreased. Vehicles are spaced about 8 car lengths. Minor incidents are expected to create delays. That's for D. There must be some E, because she said most is at D or better. So, thank you.
Next we have Veronica Godwin, followed by Sharon Staton of 1123 Alley Lane.
Without waiving these objections in any way, I provide the following substantive comments. My objections and those of the coalition to this development are numerous and begin with the way in which it was originally conceived and handled. The change to the master plan that envisioned converting a rural residential and agricultural area that over 100 families call home into a high-tech industrial and commercial development was ill-conceived and smacks of condescending disdain and disregard for those of us who live here. Our homes, our property, and our neighborhoods are not disposable despite your efforts to deem them so. The rezoning applications ask, do you have any evidence that a reasonable return on investment cannot be received by developing the property with one of these uses permitted under the current zoning? To which the developer replied, given the construction of the Latson Road interchange, it is not reasonable to assume the area would be developed in its current designation of country estates. This is as insulting as it is conceited. He provides no evidence as required by the application and only offers up his divine proclamation that it is not reasonable to assume anybody would want to live here. I want to live here. So do the Pardiacs and the Hoskins and lots of other people who move to this specific area because we like living near the interchange in a rural, low-density country estates setting. You have two people here this evening that just bought homes on Latson. So I would submit as evidence to you this evening that a more reasonable return on investment can be received by developing the property exactly as permitted under the current zoning, and that the applicant has not met and cannot meet the threshold.
Next is Sharon Staton of 1123 Alley Lane, followed by Annette Fish of 308 West Caledonia.
Thank you for letting me speak tonight. There are many reasons why this development in Livingston County is a bad idea. First, this industrial development will decrease home values in Livingston County. It's been shown by most of the people in this room that they moved here because of the small town feel of this community. If we had wanted the busy craziness of a Novi or Ann Arbor, we would have moved there. This development will cause more traffic and more congestion, higher taxes for infrastructure, hotels, gas stations, and on and on. This project will drastically change the character of our rural community. And lastly, on your website, it states that Genoa Township is a charter township in the heart of Livingston County. Lakes, wetlands, rolling hills, meadows, and wildlife all abound in this beautiful community of country living. Well, I'd like to keep it that way. Thank you.
Next is Annette Fish, 308 West Caledonia Street, followed by Denise Polisella, 4200 Sweet Road.
Hello, I've lived on the east side, the west side. Most of you people have lived in this community your whole lives. This is the first time I've ever lived in a community like this. I have lived in the city with industrial up my butt. I'm sick of it. I moved here so that I could live a quiet life. I've enjoyed it. Most of the people I have known since moving out here who are not born to this community came here for the lifestyle that every single person here is working so hard to destroy. Congratulations. Woo!
Next is Denise Polisella, 4200 Sweet Road, followed by Michelle Herbert, 4857 New Haven.
It's Policella, and I'd like to just say that in the 15 years I've presented to municipalities, I've never had a municipality not allow delegation of a community's minutes to one person to read one letter. And it's ridiculous that we have to do it in parts. It would be much faster if we didn't have to. It'll be on our website, and I'll be reading it tomorrow live on Mike and John. But come up and help us finish it. That's not the end of the developer's proclamations. He's also kind enough to inform us all that there is a demand in Genoa Township for the types of uses proposed at this site. Again, he provides no evidence to support his statement and does not even bother to respond to the second part of the question that asks if there's anywhere else in the township better suited to this project. So I suppose we're just supposed to take it as gospel that we are desperately in need of another drive-through fast food restaurant, another gas station, another low-end chain hotel, and a 200,000 square foot industrial distribution warehouse that operates 24 hours a day. But what bothers me even more than the developer's arrogant assumption that he does not have to actually take the questions on the rezoning application seriously, questions that are meant to provide a minimum basic threshold for rezoning that he has not even bothered to try to meet because you have given him no reason to think he has to, is the township's inexplicable and continued defense of this developer, while at the same time treating anybody who dares question this project with a contempt and dismissiveness that is incredibly offensive. When you ask at the township about this project, you get the same response. It's already a done deal and we've been working on it for a long time. Let me be clear. Nobody here cares how long you've been working on this because it doesn't matter. The date that you or the developer started thinking about this project is irrelevant if the public had no knowledge of it. And the fact that you keep repeating how long you've been working on it is not an answer. The fact that the very first meeting at which this public had any opportunity to know this project even existed was on December 10th, 2019 at a joint work session where no public comment was allowed. Not July 2019 when the application was filed, and certainly not 2012. Stop telling people that it started in 2012 like that somehow justifies how horrible it is.
Next is Michelle Herbert, 4857 New Haven, followed by Christine Masson of 5019 Oak Bluff Court.
Hi, thank you for letting me speak tonight. I'm going to continue reading this letter. You held 2 total public hearings on this development, both virtual, one in June 2020 and one in August 2020, both during the pandemic lockdown when people were home terrified. Regardless of whether it was technically legal, it was immoral, it was thoughtless, and I think, as you can see by the amount of anger and opposition it has engendered, it was wrong. Just because you can do something doesn't mean you should do something. Fortunately, you can get a do-over. It is expired and you now have the opportunity to require the developer to refile his application so that we can all discuss his proposed development for the northern parcels in an in-person, open public forum as a community. Again, without waiving our objections, as it relates to the substantive proposals in the application, we would love to comment on the exhibits to the amended PUD agreement, but there are none. So we will address the parts that were provided to the public with the expectation that there will be at least one additional public hearing after the public has had an opportunity to view the exhibits. Generally speaking, and after a careful review of the meeting packet provided, the amended PUD agreement contains an Amazon warehouse-sized loopholes, including, among other things, petition for buildings larger than 200,000 square feet, for buildings exceeding 4 stories in height, for challenging his pro rata share of the cost of future improvements required by his development, including widening Latson Road to 5 lanes, infrastructure, and installation of a traffic light. These loopholes allow the developer to continue to escape the restrictions in the zoning ordinance and should be definitively closed, specifically and in no particular order. We request requiring 100 mature green zone barrier between 100 feet, this development and any abutted residential property to protect their privacy, their property rights, their property values, and to reduce the mitigation or to mitigate the noise, odor, and light pollution anticipated.
Next is Christine Masson of 5019 Oak Bluff Court, followed by Wayne Jewell of 10491 Sourwood Court. I'll call Christine one more time. Christine Masson of 4019 Oak Bluff Court. Howells. Next then would be Wayne Jewell, 10491 Sowerwind Court, followed by Jane Locke of 3401 Pineview Trail.
Knocking things off here, I'm sorry. For full disclosure, my name is Wayne Jewell. I am a construction code consultant and I have worked with Joe Seward. Just full disclosure as to where folks are at that are involved in this meeting and their relationships from a business standpoint. I live in Brighton Township, resident of Livingston County. This development will impact my home. If you all have ever driven through the three-way roundabout over Lee Road, you understand what regional development does and how you have to deal with it. I'm concerned because I do drive through this corridor with the increased traffic and the other impacts that this will make on the infrastructure that's already here and what yet is to be developed. I've gone through the PUD that was available. I have not taken a look at the revisions. You got problems. You got problems with definitions conflicting with each other between different sections of what's a permitted use, what's a prohibited use, what's the limits and the design uses that you have in here. I've been dealing with construction, regulations, building codes, zoning ordinances for 42 years. I got a little experience in it in a very large community not far from here. Oversees our population by quite a bit. I brought up at the earlier meeting in regards to your water supply. Take a look at the uses that you have and permitted in exhibits 4 and 5. You're going to find out that you got almost half of them need some form of suppression system. I'm surprised the Brighton Fire Authority has not raised the issue over the quantities of what will be required. Not only the fact that you've got building allowances to be high-rise structures. Do you have the equipment in the Brighton Fire Authority to deal with that scale of an incident? You have 200,000 square feet, an unlimited area building. You're going to be able to fight that fire? You're going to be able to deal with it? If not, why are you doing this and putting it at risk? I urge your opposition to this.
Next is Jane Locke of 3401 Pineview Trail, followed by Melanie Johnson of 3990 Chilson Road.
Good evening. It is incumbent upon the Planning Commission to understand the Michigan compiled laws regarding the Open Meetings Act and abide by the laws in effect at the time of the meetings. In retrospect, it is clear that the Planning Commission violated the Open Meetings Act, PA 485 MCL 15.263 in effect on June 11th, 2020. And it states, Section 3, all meetings of a public body shall be open to the public and shall be held in a place available to the general public. All persons shall be permitted to attend any meeting except as otherwise provided in this act, which is then enumerated in Section 2. Section 2 is all decisions of a public body shall be made at a public meeting open to the public for purposes of any meeting subject to this subsection except a meeting of any state legislative body or public body shall establish the following procedures and accommodate the absence of any member of the public in military duty. That's no other reason, just military duty. And what happened? Governor Whitmer, in response to the pandemic, wrote Executive Order 2020-15, which temporarily allowed these electronic meetings. And that was carried through until June 30th, 2020. Then there was a court decision which upset all of you, which you should be aware of. If you're not, shame on you. The Supreme Court, the decision rendered on October 2nd, 2020 changed everything. And when the Supreme Court ruled that all of Governor Whitmer's actions were outside her authority and rendered all of her COVID-19 executive orders unconstitutional, it was a unanimous decision, by the way. So, armed with that knowledge, it's incumbent upon you to be aware of that. You should have revisited any meetings that you had when you made any kind of agreements with anyone, realizing that those meetings were now in retrospect illegal, and hence whatever agreements came out of the meetings were also illegal.
Next is Melanie Johnson of 3990 Chosen, followed by Deborah McCormick of 2650 Spring Hill Drive.
The additional CAPUD at a minimum should be rejected, as it is mostly comprised with industrial and high-tech and high-density, and a very small portion of it is residential, and that residential does not even come close to meeting the CE surrounding areas. So what you're going to end up with is a landfall of just high-density housing, bam, right in the middle of AGCE. That's unfair to us as residents, and then bringing down all the water, or are they going to be on wells? It just answers or asks too many questions. I take issue with the traffic. You might all know that I live on a very busy intersection, and it's insane. And there's no way only 6% of that traffic is going to be coming from the Latson area. That's insane. Not everyone's going to be commuting from Ann Arbor. They're going to be commuting from Brighton. They're going to be commuting from Hamburg. They're going to come from all over if these high-tech jobs actually have a draw. I think that we should also be aware that they still need to be respectful of noise ordinances. I think it is commercial to residential is 80 decibels between 7 a.m. and 10 p.m. and 50 decibels from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. So I don't know if the businesses proposed will actually operate beyond that, but those noise ordinances still be looked at and considered, because a 50-foot barrier isn't that much to actually block noise from your neighbors. There's mentioned a vision for the area, and I cannot see a major boulevard and 3 entrances on Latson and stoplights and nothing planned for Crooked Lake. Rush hour at 3 Fires, football on Tuesday nights, there's 400 cars pulling in there. We already have a lot going on in our area. Carefully consider commercial development and please control urban sprawl. Once you approve these items, there's no take back.
Next is Deborah McCormick, 2650 Spring Hill Drive, followed by Brian Jones of 2695 Chilson Road.
I've also had a real estate license since 1985, and I've lived out half Carpenter since 1992. I'm horrified and disgusted that I'm supposed to take your opinion as gospel over everything else, when, first of all, you don't follow your own rules. You have a time frame you did not keep to, and you choose to ignore it and just make rules that apply to you and your wants and needs. You have meetings during COVID when no one can attend to achieve your goals. And for some reason, this gentleman here seems to think he can come to Howell and rape our land, and you're going to support that. We will do the whole you, and our rights come from God. They don't come from you. We stand here as free individuals, letting our wishes be known, and you're ignoring it. Not only do you ignore it, but you go on the down low to circumvent our wants. And I only got into this last week. Okay, just think about it out here a few weeks ago. I've had it with you people. If you aren't going to represent us, we are the constituents. We make this area up. We live here. Our children go to school here. We are the ones that are telling you what we want. You don't just dictate that we're going to do what this man wants because he happens to donate to a campaign or just show up and have enough money to get his way. Because if you want to do what you want to do, then find another job, because you're here to represent us and protect us, our wants, our needs, our property, our children. These kids are going to get hit trying to cross the street because there's going to be so much traffic. You're going to have high-density housing there. Just the noise and the confusion, it's going to be a disaster. We don't want it. Make no mistake, we don't want it, and we're not going to stop fighting to keep it from happening. Shame on you for not doing the right thing. Shame on you for doing it on the down low.
followed by Franklin Godwin of 2482 Latson Road.
Wow, that's a hard follow. Yeah, Brian Jones. I live on Shilson Road. I've lived in Genoa Township for almost 30 years. King Road, Pine Creek Ridge, and recently, 2 years ago, moved out on Shilson Road for a 7-acre parcel, country estates, that kind of living. That's why we're here. I'm very concerned about the indication that there's so many loose ends, there's so much ambiguity in how this is being presented to the residents. You have an accountability as the board to represent us, okay? There are major issues. In the short little time we've heard tonight from now another layer of revision to the proposal, there's data integrity. The road study lady that was talking wasn't even believing her own data. I mean, data integrity, and to say that this makes a difference because I have a software tool that I can't even demonstrate is a major concern, right? So data integrity is a major, major problem. Hours of operation to this site, again, safety, noise, all the things that many others have talked about. What the board owes and what any developer owes is transparency and clarity to what they're planning to do. There's so much, we're gonna get to it later, we're gonna figure it out, we're gonna address it at a later date. If you had a real plan, it would be, these meetings would be very, very easy. Have a real plan, have real data, and understand what the impact is to the community. So I am highly opposed to what's being suggested here. Thank you.
Next is Franklin Godwin of 2482 Latson Road, followed by Jim Post of 4923 New Haven Drive.
Okay, my name is Frank Godwin. I live at 2482 South Latson Road. I have lived in Livingston County for probably 50 years. I've never seen a development like this push through, and it's kind of like, I feel like it's a done deal. And I didn't really have a clue that this was going to, development of this size was going to be going on. And I'd like to know, maybe by a show of hands, how many other people really didn't know until just recently that this massive development was going to take place.
So you didn't do your job.
It's like, how could we not know this is one of the biggest developments that's gone on here and nobody knew about it? At least not the massive extent of it. I'm a little freaked out by that. And one other thing that bothers me is this ability to talk for 2 minutes. That's fine for me because I don't have that much to say, but I think that Denise Panicello has a lot of information, and I think to have it broken up into pieces like this dilutes her ability to put her points across. And I'm very disappointed in that. I kind of expected some development, but nothing of this size and scope with industrial buildings and road widening, and you're gonna, I mean, this is beyond, I don't know, I don't have a word for it, I'm sorry. I'm gonna, well, I would yield to Denise, but I found that's not even possible. I am disappointed in that, because she has a lot to say, and she should say it all at one time. Thank you.
Next is Jim Post.
I don't need that microphone. All I want to say is, I showed up, I've never been to a meeting yet where you can't defer your time.
Right.
And
That's
what my
right.
plan was.
Right.
For us
It's not
to be
fair.
Knowledgeable, more knowledgeable than what I am on this. And that's what my plan was, and I've never seen it where that's happened. I don't know why.
Hiding
Can't have more
information.
time. I have no idea.
Hiding the facts, as usual.
Do you want to come speak at the podium, or?
You heard me. I
Okay.
think you heard me.
Next is Lacey Dankovic of 4929 New Haven, followed by Mary Post of 4923 New Haven.
Funny, buddy.
Yep. Point of information.
I'll just add that I know that the format of these meetings is awkward because you have questions and you have comments. But to keep order, there are rules that we follow in terms of who speaks and who listens at a given time.
But you're not following the time
I
agreement that don't
Point
make
of
it.
information.
ask for your patience while we try to maintain some decorum. We are all neighbors in this room. And we need to treat each other as such.
Kelly, point of information, please, which is Robert's Rules of Orders. We have that ability.
Yeah.
May I
We have
just?
not adopted Robert's Rules of Order.
Oh, whoa, that is amazing. All right.
So it's
I
free for all.
post 4923 New Haven Drive.
Genoa Township's rules.
Dirty.
Hello.
Yep.
We retired and moved a few years ago to Howell to be closer to our grandchildren and to enjoy what this area had to offer. What endeared us to this area was all the amenities, while still having open spaces and not feeling like we were in the middle of urban sprawl, and the small town feel of Genoa Township and Howell really appealed to us. I am on our HOA board, and I am very versed in making decisions concerning what is in the best interest of our community versus individual people. When I schooled myself on the South Latson PUD issue, I got very concerned about how it had come about. The fact that meetings on this were held and decisions made during the COVID lockdown, even if they were done as required with public notices in the Argus Press, surely does not sit well with the community, who has no reasonable knowledge of the meetings, even if they sit well with the individuals that benefited from these decisions. I am all for growth and development in the right places and at the right time. The North Latson, Grand River areas are developed, growing, even though there's a large vacancy rate and a lot of the businesses that don't seem to be a priority to get filled. Have you ever driven down South Latson Road during the commute and school times? I do every day because I live off of Crooked Lake Road. The road is an artery from I-96 to the south for all the residential areas that have built up from Sweet Road, Crooked Lake, down Chilston to Hamburg and Pinckney. All you want to allow facilities with possible 24/7 truck traffic, as well as new usage of the train tracks along the artery, and this is so close to an elementary school. As our planning commission, you are supposed to be good stewards of our township land and make decisions in the best interest of the community, not in the interest of an individual developer, no matter how long that developer has owned the property. Your constituents demand and deserve that you follow the zoning ordinances, the rules and regulations that govern your authority. Please listen to your community, listen to your constituents, and not the desires of an individual developer over the wants of your community. Thank you.
I just wanted to verify, Lacey Dankovic, we had called her name earlier, I didn't see her come up. And I just wanted to make sure that she did not want to speak. So next then would be Tracy Pardiak of 4312 Rurik, followed by Deborah Tolles of 3210 Pine View Trail.
Nothing to clear my throat. Hi, my name is Tracy Pardiak. I'm one of the founding members and sit on the executive board of the Coalition to Stop the Latson PUD. I've lived in this community for more than 45 years, longer than any of you sit up there. I never thought I would find myself having to fight against a commission that is working so hard for a developer and against its residents. Tonight's presentation didn't even come close to scratching the surface of describing the impact this monstrosity will have on this entire area. It was nothing more than putting lipstick on a pig.
Yeah.
Let's start out by admitting what we all know. This PUD is expired, and this board and Mr. Wyatt are trying to end run around that to get past this inconvenient little detail by trying to combine the north and south parcels together. You can't do that. Clearly you take us for idiots. I assure you, we are far from that. I'm going to humor you for a second and pretend this PUD is not expired. There are currently 40+ empty businesses on Grand River between Hacker and University Drive. It is unconscionable. Can you consider destroying more than 300 acres of green space just to add more unneeded commercial buildings? Everybody knows allowing this to happen is effectively evicting people from their properties by attrition, because it's guaranteed people will flee that area. I mean, who wants to, overnight, go from living in a quiet residential neighborhood surrounded by trees to having their next door neighbor running semi-trucks 24/7? By the way, for those of you who don't know this, Mr. Wyatt was asked to limit his hours of operation and make it less intrusive, and to nobody's surprise, he declined. So we'll be stuck with it 24/7. We are the coalition to stop the Latson PUD, and we will not be stopped.
Chadwick Holes, 3210 Pineview Trail, followed by Jim McArdle of 2581 Fishback.
As a resident of Genoa Township, I believe that both the Planning Commission and the Zoning Commission have a responsibility to listen to the concerns of its residents with an open mind and make its decisions with the utmost consideration of how any changes they enact will affect all the residents of the township. I really struggled to try to find why you are so passionate about approving Mr. Wyatt's application when it is already expired.
That's right.
I know why I'm passionate, and I know why these people are passionate, because it's in their backyard. Literally, I live on Pineview Trail. It is in my backyard. But I looked up where all of you live.
Yeah.
One person lives closer than 2.5 miles from Three Fires
That's right.
Elementary School. It's not in your backyard. I understand that the application for the most northern piece of the PUD has expired by more than 1 year. As you're well aware, there are many, many households that will be affected by this rezoning, as well as that of the more southern piece in question, and they're voicing their concerns both verbally and in writing. Yet it seems to fall on deaf ears. We, the residents, feel that the board's not listening to its constituents, and that's a scary feeling for all of us. Since this application is expired, I firmly believe they should be required to start this process again, and this time you fully allow your constituents to be involved in the process.
Yeah.
We are concerned about the wetlands, the groundwater, as most of us have wells, the increase in noise and light pollution, the increase in traffic on Latson and adjacent roads, the safety of our children at Three Fires, including the football and soccer teams that play there, the increased need for police, fire, EMS to oversee this development, the decrease in our property values, and not to be forgotten, the preservation of this rural community that has drawn us to Genoa Township.
Next is Jim McArdle of 2581 Fishback, followed by Brad Belden, 4133 Chilson Road.
My wife and I adopt and support all of the positions that have been presented in opposition to this project. I'm not going to beat a horse to death on this, and at 62 years old, I have to be more pragmatic. I can't rely on 40-year projections for traffic. So what I did, and I believe I spoke with one of you ladies there, and I asked about certain projects that have already completed it. And many of us know about the project that's going in at Door and Grand River. And I was told that there are about 100 condos going in there. Then there's another project in Lawson, a little bit northwest of there, where there are going to be 102 houses and 12 condos. So right now, just there, Genoa Township is agreeing to 214 vehicles minimum. But then Osceola Township, which is not your responsibility, and I'm sure many of us have seen the two projects that are going in on 59 just west of Latson. They have a project on the north side of 59 which has 225 units going in. And then another one on the south that has 132 units going in. If you assume that it's only going to be one car per unit, that's another 571 vehicles moving into this area right down Latson Road. And then, after the Sixth Circuit handed us our lunch on the Padre Pio project, you're going to have that development down on Chilson Road and Crooked Lake, where Melanie Johnson, who spoke earlier, provided information during that fight where you can expect anywhere near 150,000 to 1.5 million pilgrims coming to that site a year. And now you want to put an industrial development up and down Latson Road across from a school?
Shame
What
on
are
you.
you
Shame on
thinking?
you, is right.
Next is Brad Belden, 4133 Chilson Road, followed by Jerry Rams of 4160 Summerhill.
Good evening. My name is Brad Belden. I live 4133 Chilson Road. So I understand you're going to widen this road, and I already live pretty close to the road there on Chilson, so I can only imagine what it'll do to some of these families. And I will tell you, growing up, I grew up in Fishers, Indiana. They did the same thing up on I-69 years back, and that thing sat empty for about 30 years before you had some medical people. But a lot of the same issues, very rural area. That's why a lot of us live here. I know that's why when I took a promotion and moved to Michigan, I chose to live in Livingston County. My in-laws live here. I enjoyed visiting them and how I really liked the area. It was during COVID, the free county of Livingston is how I referred to it. I will tell you, it's very concerning to me that you have two people who are in real estate and one person that's the housing, and another person that's the president of the Home Builders Association. That reeks of conflict of interest. It sounds like a lot of people on this board who've been here for a while, it sounds like. And I will tell you, I am looking for the next election. I'll be looking for your names. I'll be looking for new candidates to vote for. Because if this goes in, you guys might as well kiss your jobs goodbye.
That's right.
That's all I got.
Next is Jerry Rams of 4160 Summerhill, followed by Matt Hurley of 4070 Brookstone Court.
Thank you. Just a couple comments about the road studies and whatever they're saying about traffic. If you want to see traffic, drive by Horning and Maltby, Brighton High School, the Stockwell Academy, St. Patrick's, Mount Brighton, and you will see traffic every freaking day. And it's just painful to get through. And I guess if I had anything to say about this country that I thought we were free in, I turn around to these people and I say, why don't we vote about the 2-minute law? Everybody in favor of getting rid of that right now, vote. Raise your hand.
Yeah. Oh, I think
That's
we
your
outnumber you.
constituents voting.
Next is Matt Hurley, 4070 Brookstone Court, followed by Colleen Quinn of 4042 Brookstone Court.
Yeah, so, I started looking at this stuff, and I just don't understand from the board's position why they're pushing this zoning change now. All we've got is conceptual things on what they want to do. There's no reason on phase 2 that there's a need to rezone that area until we fully understand what the impact is going to be for what's going to be built in the area with a good plan from the developer as to what they're going to do. The second issue is that I hate the fact that we always do this dotted line around the area of traffic. Because I live off of Ladson Road, right across from the Myers. And if you go to the Myers between 8 o'clock in the morning or 4:30 at night, I cannot even turn off of my road. I have to actually go down to the apartments to go to the light in order to turn on the road. And the planning, the study that they're going doesn't even go that far. So if you look at from Grand River to 59, that whole area in there it goes from 4 lanes down to 3 lanes, and it's all jam-packed. And I don't see anything that we're doing right now with MDOT to say how are the plans for MDOT to change the roads on Ladson going down there? How are we going to make sure that it coincides with the changes that we're asking to do for all these rezoning that we're doing? And the last thing is that I think we're opening up Pandora's box. I think a lot of the people have already talked about a lot of this already, but we're all talking about the west side of Ladson. Well, what about the east side of Ladson? The minute we allow the zoning to happen for the west side of Ladson, you're going to have all these requests, and this whole group's going to be sitting here again in another 6 months from now with somebody coming in for a request to rezone the east side of Ladson. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Next is Colleen Quinn, 4042 Brookstone Court, followed by the Anthony Lagaria family of 3724 Pinckney Road.
Good evening, I'm Colleen Quinn. You already have my address. I'm a precinct delegate for Precinct 1. I have lived in Genoa Township for over 27 years. I have spoken to this group several times, as well as written letters to the Planning Commission and the full board. I continue to remain opposed to this development. It will ruin our rural character. I grew up in Plymouth in the area of 5 Mile and Haggerty, and if you travel down I-275 north of M14 and are at all familiar with that Bosch facility and all the development there, well, when I was growing up, that was the Hamlin farm. All the neighborhood kids picked corn there, and now that area is overdeveloped. And with what you're proposing, just fast forward, and that's what you're going to be looking at out here. I don't even like to go around there now. It's just too crowded. So you need to listen to if you listen to your constituents as you should, you will not allow this to happen. As has been stated, we live here because we do not want to live in the middle of urban sprawl, and that's exactly what this development is going to do. Also, while the traffic on Ladson Road north of Grand River has been mentioned and dismissed at several meetings, I maintain that this development will significantly impact traffic in this area, and it is foolish to think that it won't. I have heard the concerns raised by Denise Policella, and I want to thank her for her investigation into this matter. And publicly state my support for the issue she has outlined. I don't see how you can legally proceed with this plan. So to close, there is near unanimous public support against this proposal. And as elected officials, you must recognize that you are accountable to your constituents.
Next is Anthony Lagaria, 3724 Pinckney Road, followed by Bev Hamilton of 3769 Still Meadow Drive.
Hello, thank you. I am indeed speaking on behalf of my family and only my family. I have 4 children that will be going to Three Fires Elementary School over the next several years. I'll just jump right into it. Hopefully I don't know if I have anything novel to say or to add, but the rezoning is inconsistent with section 22.04 of the Genoa Township zoning ordinances, some of which, but not all, are as follows. Petitioner has not provided evidence regarding the ability to make an economic return on the property as it is presently zoned. The subject site should be developed into estate-sized lots for 5 acres. Those are in extremely high demand, as I am now a new resident of this area. I closed on my house about 4 weeks ago, and it is very difficult finding those types of properties. No evidence of demonstrated demand for the types of permitted uses are provided. The requested CAPUD for the expansion area rezoning is inconsistent with the master plan future land use map and is out of character with the immediately surrounding properties and uses. Page A3 of the I-96 Lassen Road Sub-Area Plan in 2013 states that the intent was the residential development along the South Lassen Road of the existing interchange campus area will remain at large lot residential densities. The intensity is to protect the residential character of the natural features through lower density development as seen on map 10. Map 10 in the legend shows that large lot residential areas is at least 2-acre lots. So at the very minimum, if you want to stay consistent with your master plan, those lots need to be at least 1 unit per every 2 acres. There are serious concerns that obviously already mentioned about infrastructure, fire protection, schools, police, environmental, and social issues. The rezoning will completely change the character of the area and lead to possibly uncontrolled future growth. Various restrictions affecting the use of the land were not properly disclosed on the application for rezoning. There are many inconsistencies across supporting documents in the planning packet, including recorded acreages, zoning maps, and land use designations, confusing interchangeable use of land use terms, and many more. The rezoning is also consistent with section 10.3.06 of the ordinance, some of which, but not all, are as follows. Multifamily residential uses are not included in the principal permitted uses for the CAPUD. The primary access of the area west of South Lassen Road and south of the railroad is not aligned with Sweet Road. Other access points.
Next is Bev Hamilton of 3769 Stone Meadow Drive, followed by Tim Quinn of 4042 Brookstone Court.
My husband and I moved here 5 years ago from Canton. We left Canton because of how it was so overdeveloped. We came here and fell in love with Genoa Township. We love the rural life, we love the green space, we love the recreation. I basically agree with everything that everyone has said. I'm worried about our property values. I'm worried about traffic flows. I appreciate all of you introducing yourselves, telling us your background. You seem interested in this community, and I can't figure out why you would allow this. I was horrified when I heard what they were planning on doing. It will we'll move. We won't want to stay here. And I don't want to move. I love Genoa Township. The other thing is I read a letter from Panhandle Eastern Pipeline that they wrote to the township talking about the concerns about the development plans and how it is influencing their easements, their gas storage. And they said it actually would not work. So I haven't heard anyone talk about that. I'm assuming you know the letter that I'm talking about. So I would like to hear that addressed also. The other thing that I'd like to say is everybody here is against this. So how do you justify not supporting us? Thank you.
Next is Tim Quinn of 4042 Brookstone Court, followed by Andrew Warner of 3452 Lakewood Shores Drive.
Good evening. I am Tim Quinn, and I live at 4042 Brookstone Court in Howell. I'm also a precinct delegate for Precinct 1. I've lived in Genoa Township for over 27 years and moved here for many reasons, one of which was the urban character of this community. Before I retired, I commuted to Saginaw for my job. Excuse me. And as many citizens have stated in prior meetings, they were willing to commute to their jobs in order to come home and live in a community such as this. Like myself, these citizens made a conscious decision on where to live and where to work. We live here because we do want to work and live in the middle, not live in the middle of urban sprawl. And this development seems to be propagating that. I'm also concerned about the increase of traffic on Ladson Road, north of Grand River. If this plan proceeds, the traffic is already becoming unsustainable, especially during rush hour. Excuse me. I'm in agreement with the points raised this evening in the previous meetings. We've spoken out against gravel pits, asphalt plants, and now this. You should have a good sense of where we stand on these issues should more proposals come forward. The people have spoken and are against this proposal, therefore you should reject it, or I would say must reject it. The residents of Livingston County, Genoa Township, surrounding townships, it's the heart and soul and backbone. You need to support us, and developers that don't have the best interests in mind, don't support them. Don't support them. And I guess in closing, there'll be two things. I know that there's an ordinance, a sound ordinance, for residential commercial saying maximum 80 decibels from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. and 50 decibels from 10 to 7.
Next is Andrew Warner of 3452 Lakewood Shores Drive, followed by Ben Tassich of 3492 Lakewood Shores Drive.
It's Andrew Warner. It's actually 3453 Lakewood Shores Drive, so we can read my writing. Anyway, I thank you for the opportunity to speak, and I think you have a really good sense that there is an 8-person here that supports what's being proposed, and I'm going to continue with the letter here. We request limiting the hours of operation for the non-residential businesses located anywhere in this development to 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. It is nearly impossible to imagine how the township spent a decade working on this and did not think to restrict the hours of operation for an industrial park you're dropping into the middle of a residential area. This industrial park requires restricted hours of operation, and you owe that much to the adjacent and surrounding property owners. We request that the developer do this, but he has refused because his clients need 24-hour trucking. I also find it impossible to believe that trucks coming and going 24 hours a day is what you intend to approve, especially because it is in direct contravention of the language and the clear intent of the CAPUD ordinance. Next point, the single-family residential proposal for the lower half of the southern parcels are medium density and quite small, and are not the 2-acre parcel lots that were, as I understand it, supported to be here. There are many fewer of them, and the transition areas that was, according to the developer, supposed to be located north of the Marion Genoa drains now south of it, which significantly reduces the residential and increases the industrial. We do not agree and would not want single-family 2-acre homes throughout the parcel with the high-density housing further north. We also want a 100-foot mature green buffer on Crooked Lake so that the development has a higher-end look and feel. Next point, we want an environmental impact study done more specific to the endangered species. None of this has been done. The developer's report assumes because this is farmland, there are no critical habitants on the property and that would fall under the state or federal protection. Yet over 80 species, including several species of bats, bees, salamanders, and other butterflies common in this area are added.
Next is Ben Tassich of 3492 Lakewood Shores Drive, followed by Stacy Wooster of 2209 South Latson.
Good evening. I'm 83 years old, and this is really past my bedtime, but I have to be here this evening. My heart goes out to all of you on the stage this evening. I truly mean that, because what you're asked to do on a daily basis to make sure that Genoa Township is a premier township, not only in our county, but in our state of Michigan. I'm a 25-year resident, retired school teacher, came here because it had the feel of up north. Brought up in a city, raised in a city, born in a city, but loving the last 25 years in this county, in this township. I'm troubled that, number one, there was so little information out to the public on what you're doing. You are making some huge changes in the lifestyle of the hundreds of people that are here tonight and that live in this area for a commercial industrial development, while properties of the same nature sit empty along Grand River. I just don't understand it. You've been accused of personal interest in these projects, and I don't think that's fair. I think you serve us because you want to serve us, because you want the best for this community. But let me ask you one question, just one. If you lived on Sweet Road right now, how would you feel?
Amen.
If you lived on the corner of Latson and Crooked Lake Road, how would you feel? I think you're getting my message that you are ruining people's lives with this development. I am a capitalist. I believe in capitalism, I believe in profit, I believe in business, I believe in progress, but don't do it by destroying the environment.
By the way, the guy up there in the middle could care so little, he's doom scrolling right now.
Latson, followed by Alfred Wilder of 3109 Pineview Trail.
So the guy in the middle
I
could
know
care
my
so little about this, he's
perspective
doom
will not be
scrolling
never
right now,
kind.
not listening.
Please be kind to me. I'm just a teacher, not good at public speaking. When I first moved here, it was a dirt road. Things have changed. We knew about the Latson interchange for the last 14 years. The township always was very forthcoming with what was planned for the road. I attended many meetings and had very professional conversations with Kelly. She never wavered from her stance of never going further than Crooked Lake and waiting for the right prospect for the campus interchange. It was in the paper and talked about for years. Fast forward today, things have changed. So now I'm looking forward to the future of Genoa Township and the prospect of jobs that could come to the area and fill some of the empty stores in Grand River. Prospect of opportunities for young people to start a career so they can be close to their families. This could be a good opportunity for positive growth for our community and family.
Where do you live? Yeah.
Where do you live?
I think so.
Next is Alfred Wilder, 3109 Pineview Trail, followed by Deb Beatty, 3109 Pineview Trail.
Hi, my name is Alfred Wilder. I own 2 homes very close to what you guys want to do. I moved out here over 30 years ago, wanting to live in the country. And what you guys are doing is changing it. You don't hear nothing that's going on. You do a Zoom 2020 thing with this guy, with nobody else on the Zoom meeting but you guys and him. And it's already expired. What's going on is not right. You need to get that guy in there to make a new plan. I'm not happy with it. I'm not happy with any of you. And when it comes time to vote again, I will not vote for any of you. And I hope to see you all gone at the next meeting. You need to change it.
Next is Deb Beatty, 3109 Pineview Trail, followed by Gina Gagne, 4354 High Crest Drive.
Hi, I'm Deborah Beatty, live at 3109 Pineview Trail. Been here for over 33 years, and we've watched all the nice changes. I'm not going to talk about all the little details everybody's been saying today that are awful. What I want to say is what you are planning to do and what you are allowing that person to do is death and destruction to this whole area that we love, not just the strip down Latson, but every area even close to that. Driving up and down that road, it's all going to be destroyed. It's gonna be the city, and we're like somebody else said, we're gonna be trapped. This is total destruction of our lives. And I suggest A, B, C, and D recommend no to the township board. Thank you.
Next is Gina Gagne, 4354 High Crest Drive, followed by Mark Barrett, 4180 Timberview Drive.
Good evening. I just wanted to say that I've been living in Genoa Township for 38 years now. I raised 4 children here, and we live on Crooked Lake. And I can't believe that this has happened. We have been in this community for quite a while, and for something like this to pass without us all knowing is just unbelievable to me. I mean, I think that this man here took advantage of a bad situation when we were going through COVID, and he profited from that. I just feel like this is increasing our population. It's destroying the wildlife. It's going to affect the air quality of our children that are living here. I mean, my suggestion to this man is to sell your property to a farmer.
That wasn't in response to your applause. That was to say we're going to take about a 10-minute break right now because we've been here for about 2.5 hours, so all you can do like we are going to, and that is stand up and stretch. Thank you.
Denise, this is, yeah. 2 minutes. There might be a little, but what I'm going to propose as a delegate, I'm going to look at the audience and ask them how many of them want to hear your full report from you, and I'll see the response. I'm not, you know what? And if they ignore that, when they see the hands, then that really will show. I know, but let's try it, and then Mark, when I go up, I just need to know what's left of it. I'll just finish. Well, I hope not. Please don't over. You're leaving? Yeah. It's expired. Oh, yeah. But you have to still do it. No, I've seen it in writing. It's I don't have a computer. Yeah, it's the rules of our township. So why don't they tell you? Read your letter last Mark's off. Yeah, it's already marked. Okay. It's just so that they repeat. Where are you? They made that. State applications in plain English. Yeah, it is exactly as stated. Whatever spin you put on it, it's going to be hard even with my kids. There's 3 things. I don't care if they're nice. I don't man. Right?
A lot of people here seem to think that these people are elected. I just want to straighten that out right now. Our township trustees are elected by us. They appoint these guys. Some of these guys are trustees. You want these guys out? Change your trustees.
Bill Rogers sat with them in his office.
I turned off the mic.
So why did you think that was a problem?
Statement that they won't let us read.
Maybe in the general charter of the township. I'll try and put it
Because I asked her, what if it is expired? I asked her the question, goes, what are it again? What's that? Start again. Actually, the zoning doesn't go away. Zoning. We don't have all these zoning. Yes. You do not until this, well, no. Not the changes, because I have the changes that you proposed original part that nobody else knows about. I have the zoning on the original high-tech part. I've got pictures of stuff that was on his desk that nobody else has. These are your proposals that you have that get changed periodically. This is what you changed. This was on Bill's desk. This is the date that these meetings were there. This is what I was given to Bill. So this is, that's another counter. So you're trying to tell me that all this information that I got into this president is lies. I didn't say that. You're not acknowledging the facts. I don't know such a mission as this. It's so site plan has been expired. Okay, zoning never goes away. It's not something the states here. It can be changed at any time. But they can go back and change it. Yes, I asked that question. Yes, they could. They could do that. Okay, so you're making it sound like there's no going back. That's not correct. That's what you want to put to play. There is no change. How about we decide to have lunch afterwards? Whatever's wrong, pays the mission. Oh, I don't discuss this thing. She did you told me to now that it was so I can show it to you. It doesn't matter. Fill out a card. I did enjoy the conversation. You know how to get home. It's on the website. Oh, I have your phone number. It's on the Oh, it's on the website. Yeah. You know, I mean, it's just we have so much industrial that's vacant that needs to be. Well, that's commercial. Pardon me? The commercial on Grand River is not industrial. There's industrial at M59 in Grand River. There's huge spots all over that are empty in industrial complexes near the railroad tracks, near the expressway. But you want to desecrate farmland that we've got deer, we've got turkeys, we've got all kinds of animals. And just because you want to put it there, it's my property. Well, I guess you should have thought about that because when you bought it, it was, how long have you had it? A long time. How long is that? Parts of it back before 2000. Okay. So where's the park? There wasn't even an accident there. No. Okay. So. Oh, wow, isn't that convenient? That is so convenient. It is convenient. For you, for everybody. I've lived there for a long time.
I want to say for my age, and I see that, you know, we have drive-through trees.
Nope, just I do.
Yeah. Well, you know, I don't know. They seem to think that it's right next to the school, all around us. It's all around the school. My question is, besides, no, I think it's a valid point. That's a very valid point. No, I think that's a very valid point. The master plan did say that it doesn't go there. So, you know,
industrial, but that's not just what he's doing. Okay. Now he's got to have more. That's not.
I think that's a minor point.
I think that's especially the.
I think that's a minor point.
It should be private commercial. Not just master plan says that that should be the schedule of the
I think it's a minor point. I'm interested in.
I don't care. What if all of a sudden the task says, you know what, you can't do it, I'll say.
I agree. It's a valid point. stepping in, but I just think that, that argument is with my question is, sure, of course, right. I agree with that, but my question is, the question is above that, it's just like, hold on, we have 670 towns, regardless of what the master plan says, let's stop, think about what the situation is. I'm going to learn. I'm not going to get up and speak. I just came to talk to you because that's my question. Like, how could you justify that industry? Regardless of what the plan says, the plan allows you to do that. I think from what I've seen, it does. Your grandson went to Three Fires. Okay. My question is like, is he there now? No, she's 22. Okay, so that's kind of an irrelevant point because we're there now or in the future. My question is, right? Wait, I want to hear more about this. I thought you were having treatment there with people who No, it's not right. No. What kind of industry are going to have here? Warehouses, okay. What kind of logistics are transportation of And this is, what is this? This is high-tech. High-tech, hold on, there's plenty about high-tech. There's plenty of chemicals.
Excuse me, if I can have your attention, we're going to resume the meeting in about 1 minute, so if you want to find a place to sit, and we'll continue. Thank you.
I want to hear some more, okay, but I do think that the master plan, regardless of what it says, we need to think of what's right, and being that close to the elementary school. That's what it's there. It's going to be ungodly. It's easier to cross the street and get Yeah.
You were a fire girl. I am on fire. Do you know what? So needless to say, girl, don't think that's
I'm sorry I didn't read some of your stuff. I'm sorry, I was so mean.
You were fantastic. You were fantastic. Just so many.
Yes, I love your cat.
I wish Jane would let most of the expiries.
I agree.
I think it's really instantly get kicked out of the room. She's mad about it. That 2 minutes.
Because it was her.
I know.
And I know if you don't get it.
All right, I'd like to reconvene the meeting at this point. The meeting is now in session.
Your mic's not on.
Wait, I can't hear you.
Your mic's not on.
No, couldn't hear you. I thought.
sure your mic is working.
Hello.
Very good. Mark Barrett, 4180 Timberview Drive, followed by Susan Nichols, 4935 Fairways Drive.
So I'm Mark Farron, 4180 Timberview Drive. I moved here in 1987, and for 37 years I commuted to Farmington Hills, Southfield, and the Fisher Building in Detroit. Was I happy to spend 2 to 3 hours a day in the car? No, I'm not insane. It was terrible, but it was worth it to me. I was happy to do it because I wanted my wife, I wanted my children to be able to grow up in a rural community. And besides, you know, I never worried about it. I always felt like we had a deal. And I'll read back what someone else read earlier. Genoa Township is a charter township located in the heart of Livingston County, Michigan. Lakes and wetlands, rolling hills, meadows, state parks, and wildlife all abound in this beautiful community of country living. We had a deal. I was happy to pay my taxes, to be part of the community, to pitch in, to help out, to make this place better if and when I could. And now we're standing here talking about this. I'm retired now. I was looking forward to living in this bucolic rural community that we've all talked about, and now I'm late to the game, but I have to think about not only this monstrosity of a development, but the years it's going to take to accomplish it. About 10 years ago, I came before, not you guys, but a similar board, about a cell tower that they wanted to put at Brighton Road and Chilson Road that your predecessors voted down. Why? Because it didn't fit the footprint of a rural community. How have we got here? How have we got a cell tower compared to this? And I would want to say, I wanted to say too, that I think that our anger with the developer is a bit misplaced. Developers are here, I'm a capitalist, as the gentleman said too. They're here to pick our bones, make the money, and move on. It's what they do. We shouldn't be mad at them. We should be working with the people in front of us to try to get this stopped so that this doesn't happen to us. So I would just say, if this does pass, be honest with us and be honest with yourselves, for God's sake. Change the verbiage on our own township web page and say Genoa Township. We're trying to be like Novi.
Next is Susan Nichols of 4935 Fairways Drive, followed by Carl House of 16880 House Drive.
Good evening. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I am not going to reiterate what everybody else did tonight. You sit before us. You see what's happening to our community. I am just going to go ahead, and there's a few things. We have over 300 signatures here on a petition. It's an informal petition, but still the same it holds. I too am an executive director of Coalition to Stop the Lapsing PUD. I'm proud to be here. I'm proud to support the community. I'm proud to be a delegate. But I'm going to start with Denise's letter because she was not able to finish it. So we would like an amendment added to the PUD agreement and executed by every planning commissioner, township employee, and township trustee that neither they nor any of their immediate family members, businesses, or business partners have any direct or indirect ownership or options for ownership in any of the companies that own any of the real estate proposed to be developed here or any real estate that may be added in the future, and that none of them will or can derive any personal financial benefit from any part of this development. This is a transparency issue, plain and simple. Ownership of companies is not publicly available in Michigan. In other words, we have no idea, and neither do you. who owns any of these companies and who has options in or contracts with any of these companies. I only have 37 seconds left, so I'll leave that there. This is God's land. This is not your land. And we are to be good stewards. And that obligation falls on you too. Thank you.
Next is Carl House of 16880 House Drive, followed by Leo Nicholas of 2290 South Latson.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak briefly. My name is Carl House, as Kelly indicated. I've been a property owner in Genoa Township for approximately 30 years. So I have seen change. I might add that I think most of the changes have been very good in the township. I think the township has a lot to be optimistic about, a lot to be proud of. And I think this particular opportunity that is before the Planning Commission is an opportunity, I think, that a lot of work has obviously been done on by both the Planning Commission, by Mr. Wyatt's team, and many others. And I would suggest that this is an opportunity to move forward in a deliberate fashion and make a reasoned decision aside from emotion. And I can understand the positions of the people who are against this, don't get me wrong. Overall, I think it should be looked at from the standpoint of what is really in the overall best interest of this township and really a benefit to this county and the state of Michigan potentially. What you have here is a project that is, I think, well thought out. It holds tremendous potential to create real, meaningful employment for this county and this township, which everyone, I think, knows has been lacking for a long time. There has been a lot of work done. I think maybe there's work that remains to be done on this, and I'm confident that the Planning Commission, in conjunction with Mr. Wyatt's team, can work this out in the best interest of the township and the county of Livingston. Mr. Nicholas was also a friend of mine, Leo Nicholas, and a resident of the township for, I believe, over 45 years. Has trouble sometimes reading things publicly. So he's asked me to read a very brief letter dated January 13th. And this letter references this type of project over 10 years ago. So this is not something new. This is something that's been planned ever since the inception of the Latson Road interchange. And I think I'm running out of time right now, so I don't think I'll do it.
No, you're out of time. Bye-bye.
Next is Leo Nicholas, 2290 South Latson, followed by Suzanne Cunningham of 3413 Dewdrop Lane.
Mike on? Yep. I'd like to say that when Stacy stood up and went back, people said, "You're not a good teacher." And the way that people are treating the mic here after is embarrassing to me to have them as neighbors. Not one person up here talks that way. They don't boo people. You let them have their say. You haven't even cut these people off back here. I'm here to say that I'm thankful that you guys are doing your job and putting up with the nonsense that's going on here. See, even the boo. But what I am saying though is, I've lived here 48 years. And when they moved in, a lot of these people, Oak Point, all of these came and the farmers put up with them. They've been putting up and it's been growing. And every city is growing that way. I owned a company with 50-some people in it in Westland, Bologna area. When you go into industrial parks, you talk about all this noise and stuff. Go through any of them in Livonia, any industrial park. There's none of the noise that you guys are talking about.
Really? I moved out of Westland.
Wait a minute. Am I talking or are you talking?
Do you think we're retarded?
I know, it's ridiculous. I live there, I know it.
The equipment that we used and the other people have to have air conditioning. There's no noise. And when you go through the industrial parks over here, you're talking about, well, there's all these there's no vacancy in any of the parks in here, in Howell, in Fowlerville.
Not true, sir.
Oh my God.
Sorry. He's lying.
If you're not gonna be courteous, what kind of neighbors are you to each other? You can't hear an opinion from the other side.
by the developer.
I feel sorry for the people here. I didn't see any of these people at any of the planning meetings that I was at.
Next is Suzanne Cunningham of 3413 Dewdrop Lane, followed by Kenneth Pardee of 4312 Rurick.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Cunningham and I live on Dewdrop Lane. My husband and I moved here almost 2 years ago from Livonia, where we lived 33 years. And Livonia did it right. On one side of the expressway was the industry, on the other side of the expressway was the residential, and it was nice like that. But my friends that did live by the industries, there was noise, there was pollution, there was traffic, there was crime, and as far as the job situation is concerned, people that are gonna get a job there and make $13 an hour are not gonna be able to afford the housing that they have there. When we moved out here nearly 2 years ago, we wanted to retire to Plymouth, but we moved out here. I was a teacher in Northville for 20 years, and we wanted to retire to Plymouth, but I moved out here to follow my grandchildren. And I was so excited. I said to my neighbors back in Livonia, I feel like I'm living in the country up north. The trees and the lakes, we were so happy. We have a beautiful neighborhood, we have fantastic neighbors, and I was so excited. But not anymore. My husband and I walk, we live in the landings of Rolling Ridge, and we will walk up Grand River up to where Myers is. And I'm seeing a community that I don't know what the board is doing. Instead of from Wilson Marina to the courthouse, there is so many empty buildings and strip malls. Why are you putting in an industry when 85% of the businesses on Grand River are empty? Instead of focusing on that, why don't you focus on giving incentives to businesses to move into the area? And one suggestion, when I go to the physical therapist at Plymouth Physical Therapy on Grand River, when I go to Myers, when I go to Big Lots, the parking lots are disgusting, and there's an eyesore. My friend in Livonia is a widow, she doesn't even want to move out here anymore because she doesn't like what she sees.
Next is Kenneth Pardee of 4312 Rurick, followed by Ida Bigas of 1950 Genoa Circle.
I'm going to read from the prepared letter, but before I do, breaking it up into chunks, it kind of loses its whole effect. Really what it's saying is follow the rule of law, follow your own rules, approve a development that fits in with the master plan, and one that's in character with the neighborhood. That's really what this says. Anyway, we also want any use that is not listed in the principal permitted uses in Genoa Township CAPUD zoning ordinance removed from the list of permitted uses of the project. This includes, but is not limited to, outdoor storage, warehousing, distribution facilities, all light industrial that is not a related or complementary use to a principal permitted use, and buildings over 40,000 square feet or 3 stories in height. This developer, like any other applicant in Genoa Township proposing a use that is not permitted in a particular zone, should have to go through the same process that everybody else does for a variance. We have no objections to the deviations, as this is within your authority under the ordinance. But deviations and variances are two very different things. We have significant concerns about not only this developer, but about the potential from state or multinational level players coming into this space due to the flexibility and autonomy afforded to this developer. As an example, look at what is happening in Big Rapids with Goshen and its EV battery plant, which bought the land in Green Township after the state approved millions in incentives for its strategic outreach fund. My point here is not to use scare tactics. It is to point out the fact that there's a massive amount of flexibility and autonomy in this project that could have incredibly destructive, unforeseen consequences, and that we must put some guardrails around this project now to prevent them. We have very, very serious concerns that this planning commission and the developer have different ideas about what you are approving, and that the language and uses that you're approving are vague enough to allow him to bring uses in here that were never intended. Finally, we have a major concern about the future potential use of this site that follow pending legislation in HB 4905 and 4906 just made it to House floor in Michigan. These bills would give tens of millions of dollars in incentives to attract hyperscale data centers in Michigan, as they recently did in Ohio. That's going to be about as far as I can get. Thank you for your time.
Next is Ida Bigas of 1950 Genoa Circle, followed by Eugene Ivanov of 2620 South Latin.
Okay, for those of you who do not know what a hyperscale data center is, it is a massive high-security data center housing at least 5,000 servers and requires an enormous amount of power, natural resources, and water to run and cool the servers. They require significant additional power sources that either do or could exist on this site. I also know that this Latson project is known as one of 4 or 5 industrial mega sites in Michigan that would be at the top of any list for locating a hyperscale data center. In addition to the fact that this is not a use that is listed in the principal permitted uses for the CAPUD zone, there is no way that this use, which is fairly new, could have been contemplated or addressed when this ordinance was written several years ago. We must be proactive in addressing the potential for this use. For that reason, we request that data centers over 40,000 square feet and hyperscale or co-location data centers be included on the list of prohibited uses for this project. Okay. The conditions that existed in 2019 or even 2012 that may have warranted consideration of this area for large industrial development do not exist anymore, and due to the new remote work culture are unlikely to change. There are currently 41 vacant commercial or industrial properties for sale or lease on Grand River in Genoa Township alone. This does not include property along Latson north of 96. Oh, gosh. That is available for development. In other words, there is no ramp.
Next is Eugene Ivanov of 2620 South Latson, followed by Karen Wilbanks of 2914 Russell Drive.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Eugene Ivanov. I'm a new resident to Michigan from bustling Southern California. I just bought my house in July of this year. So the thought that nobody wants to invest their money into this area as it is, it's completely asinine. I wasn't looking to buy when I did, just wanted to see what's out there. But the minute I stepped out of my car to look at the property, I fell in love with it for what it is, for its beauty and how peaceful and quiet it is. The development would not only affect my front yard with the widening of Latson Road, but also my backyard. I came here to escape the crazy busyness of Southern California. So finding out now that I might get shoehorned into the same thing I wanted to leave is beyond infuriating. To the committee, I was going to say that if you don't follow your ordinance and instead allow this expired PUD application to go through, start looking for another job. I don't like to speak for other people, but after everything I've heard here tonight, I don't believe there is a single person here that wouldn't disagree with me that we will vote to keep our current lifestyles. And while we just heard that we can't vote you out directly, we will vote the Board of Trustees out if this is allowed to go through and appoint new commission. And you will still need to look for other jobs. To Mr. Wyatt, get out of Powell. You are not wanted here. To the gentleman that was speaking for this development, why didn't you disclose that you're selling your property and moving to Florida? And that you're also trying to scare other people into selling their property. That's all I got.
Next is Karen Wilbanks of 2914 Russell Drive, followed by Augie Bonnet of 3219 Lakewood Shores Drive.
Hello, my name is Karen Wilbanks and I live at 2914 Russell Drive. I grew up in a rural community in Ohio. We were a town that never locked our houses or our cars. We roller skated up and down the sidewalk, rode our bicycles in the street, and walked to school with no worries of any kind. 6 years ago, I moved to Livingston County and fell in love with the small town feel immediately. 3 years ago, my husband and I chose to buy a house in Genoa Township. It was noted for lakes and wetlands, rolling hills and meadows, state parks and wildlife in this beautiful community of country living. We absolutely love our little neighborhood where the children still ride their bikes in the streets with no worries. We are a community of neighbors that watch out for each other. I have listened to both sides of the argument for the new proposed Latson PUD and rezoning. I am extremely concerned about several things. Number one, overdensity. Like me, I believe the people who live in Genoa Township like the quiet country feel and want to keep it that way. Number two, Three Fires schools. What about the runoff from industrial pollutants? The school is on a well system, and the harm to our children and staff there should be of great concern. Number three, also concerning the children, is the epic rise in child trafficking. Being so close to an industrial center, along with a major freeway system, the school and the children could be at greater risk for exploitation. Number four, the wetlands and environmental hazards. Sandhill cranes, deer, and wild turkeys are frequent visitors in our neighborhood and our backyard. Large commercial and industrial developments will run these and other animals out of their natural habitats. I trust that you will do the right thing.
Next is Augie Bonnet of 3219 Lakewood Shores Drive, followed by Andrea Theodore of 5320 Richardson Road.
I'm not a very good speaker, I'm just the sign maker. But I just wanted to say that
this is why I want to speak, because I get so emotional. My husband grew up in Detroit. I came from Poland. We worked our lives to be able to live in a community like this. We moved from Detroit to Warren to Pinckney, and then when we lived in Pinckney, I found this beautiful home here in Genoa, and just fell in love because it was convenient, and it was beautiful, and the people were so nice and friendly, but it was close to shopping, and my kids could still do all of the great activities that they wanted to do. We had you could still go to a lake and go swimming, and there's just so many wonderful things about this place. And it's so hurtful when you think that so much damage is being done in the world. And then to take away such greatness from all of us. We've all worked so hard to be here and to have this. And it would just be so sad to watch it all disappear and turn into another big industrial city. The ones that a lot of people here have strived so hard to move away from. And so, I just ask you, please kindly consider these actions that you're doing, because it affects all of us so much. And we love this place. All of us do, that's why we're all here.
Next is Andrea Sidor of 5320 Richardson Road, followed by Maureen Jones of 2695 Chilson Road.
Hi, my name's Andrea. I'm on Richardson Road, which is just a few miles south of this industrial parkway area that we're talking about. And not that long ago, just a few months back, early summer, I sat before this very same board to do the exact opposite of what these folks here are doing. I took my rural residential property, which is 20 acres, about 42 years ago. It was originally two 10-acre parcels, and I asked this board to make it into a country estate just so that I could simply put a slightly larger pole barn on my slightly larger parcel. And I can't believe that the amount of planning and organization and paperwork that many of you folks actually helped me to do, it seems as though to do the opposite is just so willy-nilly. It's just so easy. We're just gonna slap this big old industrial park here, and it's unbelievable. I have 3 kids, and I have no problem driving in and out of Detroit. I go to Port Huron, I go to Grand Rapids on a weekly basis for work, and like many of the people that are already here, I'm happy to make that drive. What I'm not happy to do is drive my kids or send them on the bus, all of them, which 2 of them right now, the 3rd one will go to 3 fires. I can't even imagine having to take them to school or imagine their bus having to go by this unbelievable monstrosity of this industrial parkway. I think one of the other points no one here has made yet is that families that are like mine, my husband's and our 3 young kids, aren't able to be here to represent those who are like us, who are currently raising our kids and sending them to that school. We hear a lot of the folks that are here and have lived here for a long time. I've lived here for a short time, but I plan to live here for a very, very long time. I don't plan to go anywhere. I want to keep the rural residential, the country estates as they are.
Next is Maureen Jones of 2695 Chilson Road, followed by Clinton Rooks of 4754 Still Meadow Drive.
Hi, I'm Maureen Jones. I've been a resident here for 25 years. My husband was born and raised in Livingston County, and my adult children currently live in Genoa Township, and we love it here and do not want to see this change. I will continue the letter. In other words, there is no rationale for locating the development here, and the fact that Mr. Wyatt owns the property is not sufficient justification. The prevailing law in Michigan does not, in fact, grant a property owner any vested right in his property until he has made substantial improvements to it, and this has not been done here. It would make significantly more sense to repurpose any one of numerous available properties along Grand River that are frankly unsightly and becoming blighted than to allow industry to invade an already established and settled residential area. I-96 is actually the perfect dividing line between a heavy commercial and industrial area and the entrance to the residential area of Genoa Township. It is a mistake to think that you can hope to prevent this industrial zone from expanding if you allow it to jump the expressway. There are 2 additional properties, one on East Latson and a large 85-acre one at the corner of Chilson and Crooked Lake Road, that are currently being advertised on the Detroit Regional Partnership list of verified industrial properties for sale in the Detroit area. The vast majority of homeowners in this area have no intention of selling their properties, but there is a provision in the proposed PUD agreement that allows the developer, as we understand it, to automatically include nearby properties in the PUD without further review. We also know of property owners on Crooked Lake Road and Latson attempting to sell their properties to this or other developers. It is called urban sprawl for a reason. And despite your best intentions and best efforts, if you allow industrial uses south of I-96, it will not stop. And we will lose our beautiful, rural, commuter township and everything we love about where we live. There is no established need, demand, or rationale for a large industrial warehouse distribution facility here. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, The median household income in Genoa Township is $84,600, and the median home value in Genoa Township is just over $302,000. Those numbers are well above the U.S. average of $70,000 and $284,000 respectively. By comparison, the average Amazon warehouse fulfillment center pay nationwide is $18 an hour and has been established not to fluctuate by more than $350. Using the high
Next is Clinton Rex of 4754 Still Meadow Drive.
Thank you. Yeah, I live in North Shore, and I'll tell you, I have to thread the needle every morning almost, getting in front of 3 fires with all the cars parked in the turn lane and on the shoulder. And I can only imagine what this will do. I'm going to continue the letter. In other words, the economics of an industrial warehouse facility do not make sense for Genoa Township. There have been no studies that we can find that show how this development will benefit the residents of the township. In fact, there's every reason to believe that if a large company locates here, DTE will offer reduced utility rates, which are much lower than the utility rates that Genoa Township residents pay, and those additional costs will again be passed on to Genoa Township and Livingston County residents as variable utility rate costs. In other words, we have every reason to believe that a large industrial development, as opposed to a smaller tech park, will be a financial burden on Genoa Township residents in every way. Please ask yourself who this development benefits other than the developer. And if it only benefits the developer, then why on earth would we allow it? Please stop swallowing whole statements like economic development and growth like they are intrinsically good without any downside, and take a hard look at whether a large industrial development will actually improve the lives of the residents of Genoa Township. We argue strenuously that it will not. Please do not be under the illusion that you have any control going forward if you allow the expansive permitted uses listed here. These permitted uses authorize an industrial warehouse distribution site on a CSX rail stop, and yes, an opioid treatment center, and the only thing you will have a say in going forward is the paint color. The amount of development and the extreme population growth in Genoa Township and surrounding townships have exploded in recent years, and we are all tired of it. I have with me today over 300 signatures from community residents.
Mr. Chair, I don't have any more cards.
I'll bring mine. I want to hear more.
Next is Deanna Spivey of 2970 Beck Road.
All right. I have with me today over 300 signatures from community residents who oppose this development, and that number continues to grow. We are already suffering the adverse effects of it in the heavy traffic and uptick in crime. The vast majority of people move here from other locations in Michigan specifically to avoid. In closing, in light of the above, we hope that you will agree with us that this application is deficient in a number of areas and does not currently meet the stated requirements of the zoning ordinance that would allow you to recommend the approval of a rezoning of the southern parcels at this time. In the event, however, that you do choose to take a vote this evening, we request that this planning commission clarify for the record what specifically it is voting on, and specifically what parts of the development are affected or impacted by the vote. It is important for the residents and taxpayers of Genoa to understand the specific scope of your vote and whether your vote on any of the agenda items tonight are intended to impact or govern the northern parcels in any way. It is unfortunate that we have to be here tonight when this could have easily been avoided by the township following its own zoning ordinance. The majority of people in our coalition, including me, are not opposed to a development here, and if it had been confined to the restrictions and intent of the CAPUD zoning ordinance, we would not have needed to form a coalition of residents to oppose it. The CAPUD ordinance envisions appropriately a low-profile, high-end medical or technology park that does not, and I quote, generate offensive external impacts and operations that generate high levels of noise, heat or glare, air pollution, odors, wastewater, or truck traffic, which are not considered appropriate in this district. And yet the developer is shopping this out as an industrial park, which will bring just that, and your original approval permitted him to do so. We encourage you to take this opportunity to correct what we hope was an oversight.
Next, we have Jason Haberthorn of 5036 Oak Bluff Court.
I'm going to finish this letter. Follow the ordinance and the master plan and approve, if you must approve anything, a development that will assimilate into the surrounding residential areas instead of literally steamrolling over them. It is entirely possible for this development to go forward in a way that benefits the developer and the community. It is within your authority to require it, if you will. You are our friends and neighbors, and we are yours, and we ask that you remember that tonight and continue to do that as we go forward. Your job is not to just balance competing interests to property owners, it's not just to follow the master plan, it's to also act as a collective stewards of this community that we all live in together and call home. Excuse me. I would like to raise a couple extra issues, some of which were touched in the letter that was read. Does any of the board or any of the people standing up there have any interest financially, gift-wise, or anything into this development?
Yeah, ain't gonna tell you. Raise your hand.
And would you raise your hands if you do?
No, they won't.
We've already done that. We started at the beginning of the meeting when we said, is there anyone who's in conflict of interest for this property? We take that very seriously. Okay. And hearing none, there are none. Okay, and that's what we get to say. Okay, well, I just want to take everybody at their word, because this is, your duties are to the rule of law and procedure to the community. That means expiration means it needs to be renewed. So when questions are asked of that, it's hard to take you at your word that, hey, great, nobody does, because everybody up there hasn't individually answered that. You've answered for everybody, but everybody hasn't done it. So when we're going forward on this, there are extra things that should have been done with more due diligence. Environmental, there's a lot of things out here that are in danger. The DNR's added a ton of animals, insects, plants that are indigenous and endangered.
I have no additional cards, Mr. Chair.
All right. Mr. Wyatt is asked to be the last one for the call to public, so.
And he gets 2 minutes like everyone else? At that time.
Actually, we'll ask you to close the public hearing and then we'll address you.
In 2 minutes. Oh, so that you can have more time? How is that fair? No.
He should get 2
He
minutes
gets
like
2 minutes
everybody
like
else.
everyone else. That's unfair. That's an egregious, that's ridiculous. Shame on all of you. You impose it on us and then they're absolved? They're absolved. He could probably actually let someone else speak for him too and give his minutes to somebody else. Yeah, it's a joke.
Decline his 2 minutes. If I hear no others that would like to come forward in the call to the public right now, then I'm going to close the call to the public and bring the meeting back up to the front of the commission. Does anyone have something to discuss with regard to this issue?
don't impose rules on anyone but us. That's right. What a joke. Shame on you, all of you.
Mr. Chair, and to the public too, I have a great empathy and sympathy for the position that you're in tonight. I know that it can be challenging to sit here for hours and to think that it's possible that your daily lives could be changed in some significant way. And I just want you to know that we take that very seriously.
Obviously not. Your actions don't show that.
To the petitioner, I know that a lot of time and effort and money has been spent to get to this point, and we take that very seriously as well. And the role for us as a planning commission is to give due process, to listen, to seek to understand the objective information and the subjective information, to take all those things into consideration, but ultimately to review this against the ordinances and laws that govern our township. There's two main governing things for us, paperworks, that govern what we do up here. The first one is the zoning ordinance. That is the rules and laws and regulations that currently govern our township. And the second one is the master plan. And the master plan you can think of as a bit of a roadmap for where the community could or potentially may head in the future. And tonight, the request from the petitioner, or the request from the applicant, is to ask us to consider and to take in all the information for a rezoning request. The biggest tool in the toolbox for consideration of a rezoning request is the township master plan.
Oh, you're wrong.
As I review the township master plan, I see significant reasons for denial of this project here tonight, and to recommend denial to the township board. Specifically around 3 words. The majority of the property in consideration here tonight is outlined and dotted in the master plan map as future transition area. You can review our map, it's sitting right on our township website. And in fact, our master plan was adopted just last year, and we went through a multi-year process to update, create, draft the master plan, which included several, not just public hearings, but open houses for feedback from our community. And it was based off that feedback that this master plan that was adopted last year was created. And so as I look at this, and it says future transition area, I want to dive into the details then of what it says specifically. In the lower right corner of page 3.7 of the future land use map that's in our master plan, it says this: the interchange transition area, which is a majority of the property being concerned here tonight, is within. The future land use and the utility service area will be reconsidered in this area concurrent with a proposal for actual campus uses. And when I read that, I underlined the word actual. And then in parentheses, it says see appendix. So when I go and see the appendix, specifically pages A.8 and A.9, I see 2 areas identified for a future development of an interchange campus, area A and area B on those schematics. Those areas are both north of the majority of the property being considered here tonight, which leads me to believe that the evidence of the master plan and the multi-year process we went through to adopt the master plan and the goals and objectives established through that process, that it would not be appropriate to accept or approve or recommend approval of this rezoning request here tonight. And so with that, I am recommending, or I'm going to make a motion to recommend denial of the request here tonight, and I can do that right now.
Is there any additional discussion of the commission?
Well, I'll make a motion. I haven't made the motion yet. I wanted to state my reasonings and evidence for it.
All right, here I have a motion.
Oh, just on the rules, it doesn't have to be second. Sorry, we can't hear you.
I would like legal counsel to explain the timeline, how we, the reason we were able to consider this tonight, with the exploration of the PUD and the reason we have that.
It's my opinion that the current PUD has not expired. That's going to be an issue that's going to be litigated in front of Judge Gaddis, and she set a hearing for December. But there's a number of reasons I believe it is not expired, one of which is the township ordinance talks about a PUD and that it can vary certain terms of the ordinance and the regulations of the ordinance, and that's consistent with the Michigan Zoning Enabling Act, the MZEA. So the requirement of the 2 years can be changed, and it was in the agreement. There are other reasons too. I'll go through them. He made substantial investment and development in the property. He paid for it and constructed the infrastructure that is already in place. So he has he's made progress into that. I have other arguments that will be presented, but I think those are some of the more strong, obvious ones that support that the current PUD agreement has not expired.
I just want to make a point that you can agree to disagree on with the attorney. That's why I guess we're going to have a judge decide. But it's not like we decided on our own without counsel that whether the agreement was expired or not. Yeah, so we ran out the ground ball, in our opinion, to see if we could still do that tonight. And I wanted to make sure that we're not making these decisions up here willy-nilly, not getting legal counsel and that kind of thing. It made several questions here, and I just want to make sure everyone knows that only one of us up here is elected. The other 6 of us are appointed, and it's not like we're sought out as volunteer for this, because we want to give something back to our community, and it is a good community to live in, because we've all lived here over 20 plus years. But we're not doing it up here for fame and glory or any of that stuff. Because I'd much rather be watching baseball than I could be in here.
Are you not going to acknowledge his motion?
Yes, I made a motion.
Okay. We're allowed to discuss.
Anyone else would like to speak?
All right, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to recommend to the Township Board denial of public hearing number 1 for the rezoning request. And then, can I just make one motion for all 4 of them, or separately should I make them? Oh, no, okay. For the rezoning request, recommend. Council? Yeah, okay, I'll make 4 motions then. Because the okay. I can hold my motion.
I would like to do that. Specifically, how to do that. Mr. Wyatt has asked to address the folks here tonight, and I'd like to do that before the motion, just so that we can understand where he's coming from and add it to our.
We know that.
Give him 2 minutes.
2 minutes, that's it. 2 minutes, everybody. Put it up there.
Time to comment.
2. Don't make it quick, dude.
All right. Mr. Chair, I'd like to recommend to the Township Board denial of the request to rezone the property with tax ID numbers outlined in open public hearing number 1.
First of all, I need support.
Oh, support.
Any other discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed say nay. Nay.
The chair votes.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to recommend to the Township Board denial of the PUD agreement amendment for open public hearing number 1 and the tax ID numbers associated with it.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Nay.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to recommend to the Township Board the denial of the environmental impact assessment dated 8/15/2023 for open public hearing number 1.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Mary Ann. And lastly, Mr. Chair, I'd like to recommend to the Township Board denial of the conceptual PUD plan dated 9/25/2023 for public hearing number 1 and its associated tax ID numbers.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, nay. Mayor, this evening, Mr. Wyatt, would you like to make a response at this time? Thank you. All right, we will move on to the staff report. Amy, do you have anything in the staff report?
To come forward that are located on Grand River across from Walmart. It was the old Consumers Energy property. They were looking to put a car wash on one, and they would like to put a commercial building on the other.
All right, anything else to report?
We will have Fillmore Park is scheduled to be at that meeting also for their mountain bike path that they want to put in at Fillmore property. And I believe that is all that I have.
All right. I look for approval of the October 10th, 2023 Planning Commission meeting minutes.
Mr. Chair, I need a clarification with respect to item 1 for 7854 Collingwood. The motion was made for environmental impact dated September 20th. I just want to confirm that that was the environmental impact date. Within the packet, there was a date of June 11th with an updated on it. And also the motion for the sketch plan was dated September 20th. There was a letter to address the engineer's comments that was dated 9/18, but the sketch plan is within that, but I apologize that those are the two items that I have a conflict with, can need to confirm.
Anyone else? Hearing none. Do we have a
Motion to approve, but we need
Based on
to
those changes.
confirm those changes, those dates.
I'll support the minutes to approve the amendment.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none. Member discussion, does anyone wish to talk about anything else coming up? Hearing none, we'll move on, and I will look for a motion for adjournment. So moved. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Bet they can't wait.
Opposed, none, passes unanimously.
Okay.